In the beginning, our male protagonist is lying on a patch of land quite leisurely. He is lamenting his wretched fate. He thought that crossing over would make him the child of destiny, whatever that system is, everything would be easily written down but unexpectedly. He sits up, feeling frustrated and sighs, a person without a spiritual root like me can only be a cowherd child. 2 days later is my 16th birthday, at which point I will join the militia and go to the battlefield as cannon fodder. Suddenly, a stream of red light shoots down from above, piercing through the body of the cow he is herding. He simply gazes and then wakes up as if nothing happened. The cow radiates some strange power. It looks at him and suddenly speaks, "After 500 years, I've finally found the right person, ha ha ha. Indeed, I am not yet meant to die." Cultivation steps back, taken aback by the cow's strange gaze, and asks, "What's going on?" The cow suddenly jumps up, gets close to him with shining eyes, and leans in to sniff him, making Cultivation feel a chill down his spine, exclaiming, "Get away, I am not a female cow. What do you want from me?" The cow blushes with joy and says, "Kid, your opportunity has come." He stood up, waved his hand and said, "Damn it." He was scared, got into a defensive stance, and said, "What's this fate thing? This cow is so lonely that it has turned into a spirit." The cow shook its head and cursed, "Damn it, don't be slow, hurry up and follow me." It pulled his hand to get him up, making him confused and ask, "Hey, where are you taking me?" The cow urged, "Hurry up, the fairy is bathing by the river over there." Hearing that, Cultivation blushed slightly, thinking wildly, the cowherd and the golden cow, the fairy is bathing, oh my, is this Nyolanginu's script? The cow poked him with its horn on the back and said, hurry up, if you take too long, there won't be any more chances." He climbed onto its back, shouting, "Hey, be gentle, you poked my kidney." By the stream, the cow happily said, "It's right here, be careful, don't get caught." He hid behind a rock, looking at the girl in her thin clothing, and then admired, "Wow, as expected of a heavenly immortal beauty. Hee, those legs, that waist, and she's bathing." He looked over at it and yelled, "Hey, this lying cow, this is not the fairy washing apples that I wanted to see." The annoying cow said, "What do you know? The apples she washes are not ordinary apples. This type of apple is called drunken immortal apple. Eating this apple can increase your spiritual energy by several years." His face lit up with joy as he asked, "So, do we have to steal her apples?" The cow grinned and said, with her 4th grade golden elixir realm cultivation, after eating the drunken immortal apple, she will fall into a drunken state. Then you tie her up. The two of them grinned wickedly, thinking they could do whatever they wanted. The cow produced a rope and he asked, "What is this?" It replied, "This is the immortal binding rope, which can strongly suppress the spiritual energy of cultivators below the golden elixir level." He looked at the immortal binding rope in his hand and stroked his chin, pondering, do we really have to use such a rough method? I could totally conquer her with my looks. The cow kicked him to bring him back to reality, saying, "With your appearance, you might have a chance in the future." It laughed disdainfully, "With your current state of being completely broke, if you don't take advantage of a chaotic situation and use some underhanded tactics, there's no way you could do it. With your clueless look, do you think you deserve it?" He rebutted, "What's wrong? You haven't eaten the drunken immortal apple and you're already drunk." He patted his chest and said seriously, "I'm sorry, but I am a righteous person, a gentleman, and I cannot do such despicable things." The cow felt a bit insulted hearing him and sighed, "I never expected that there are still righteous gentlemen in the world like you. I really have to rub my eyes to look at you." But he then changed his tune faster than a movie star, saying, "But I don't think these ladies seem like good people, let's tie them up first and figure it out later." This made the cow sweat, and he said, "You're the one who's really worthless." It cried, "Quick, look over there." The girl brought the drunken immortal apple to her mouth and took a bite. She's eaten the apple. Not long after, she was tipsy. She sat down and began to cultivate. The wounds on her body and in her abdomen soon healed. The cow stepped forward and said, "The time has come, she has eaten the drunken immortal apple, hurry and follow me." The two of them sneaked closer. He asked, "Is it really okay?" Is she really asleep? The cow glanced with one eye and said, you really just know how to talk, you don't look like a man at all. He looked at her barrier and asked, what is this? The cow replied, it's a barrier that she created. When it touched the barrier, it cracked, then looked down on it. Is that all it takes to stop me? It pointed and said, now it's your turn to perform. He approached the girl with the immortal binding rope in hand, a bit doubtful, a mortal like me tying up a golden elixir cultivator, along with a talking cow, am I not just looking for death? The cow behind urged, Gu Bei Shen, 16 years old, both parents are gone, for the past 7 years, has been living by herding cattle and chopping wood for the landlord. Gu Bei Shen asked, so, what happens next? The cow said, if you want to escape from this miserable existence and become the lord of a region, then this is your chance to change your life. Gu Bei Shen's face turned serious, swore, stop talking nonsense with me. Can tying up a girl really change my life? I might as well die faster. Something appeared on the cow's head, and it said, I didn't expect your disposition to be quite good, not so foolish. I'm quite satisfied. Gu Bei Shen asked, what is this? You read the writing above, the 100 Wives. The cow said, the 100 Wives is just an appearance, its real name is the 100 Wives book. Ancient chaos, the primordial deity Pan Gu exhausted his divine power to create the universe, later his divine body transformed into myriad worlds, simultaneously conjuring 10 divine weapons. This 100 Wives book is actually transformed from Pan Gu's waist. Gu Bei Shen looked surprised, gazing at the 100 Wives book, asking, Pan Gu's waist? Sounds really ridiculous. So later my waist will be like an iron shell? The cow replied wickedly, it sounds ridiculous, but when used, it's very powerful. The 100 Wives book embedded itself into Gu Bei Shen's body. The cow further explained, from now on, if someone calls you husband, the 100 Wives book will record that person's name and form a contract. Once the contract is completed, you can do whatever you want with their spiritual roots and magical power. Gu Bei Shen leaned against the cow, laughing slyly, wow, why didn't your brother say this earlier? He grinned wickedly and called, my little sister Ji Nu. Then he held up the immortal binding rope to the girl, saying, Niu Lang has offended you. Just when he was about to take action, he hesitated, wondering why he felt a bit nervous. He awkwardly asked his sister, are you okay? The cow next to him spoke up, saying that even a Yuaning-level monk couldn't regain consciousness after eating a drunken immortal apple for 1 hour and 3 minutes, so there was no need to try anymore. Gu Bei Shen gave a sly smile, his eyes fixed down, questioning the size, thinking that even if he looked down, he couldn't see her feet, right? He looked down at her belly and asked for clarification, are you injured? It turned out she was healing here. In a moment, he excitedly told the fairy sister, I only want a place in this world. I apologize for my rudeness, hope you can forgive me. He quickly tied her up, but his movements were gentle and soft, making her suddenly open her eyes and turn to ask in surprise, what are you doing? They stared at each other for a moment, and then Gu Bei Shen felt as if his soul had left his body, cursing under his breath, why are you awake? He looked at her, sweat pouring down, wondering if that damn cow hadn't said that one couldn't regain consciousness in 1 hour and 3 minutes. He glanced around to see the cow had vanished, thinking, where did it go? Oh, damn it, where's the cow? The girl tilted her head and asked, Grand Gidge, are you playing a game with me? Gu Bei Shen was taken aback, confused, what game? But then he quickly replied, yes. Hearing this, she exclaimed and asked, do I need to lift my feet? Gu Bei Shen grabbed the immortal binding rope and said, it will be a little easier this way. She happily said, okay. It has been years since anyone played with Zi Xian. Gu Bei Shen thought with a blank expression, is she hallucinating? That's why I say, a girl shouldn't drink when alone outside. The cow suddenly said from the side, little guy, I can see it now, you are quite skilled at this binding thing. Gu Bei Shen glared at it and cursed, damn it, where the hell did you run off to earlier? Zi Xian smiled and asked, Grand Gidge, what game do you want to play with Zi Xian? The cow lightly sweat and said, it seems that after drinking, she has the mentality of a child. Gu Bei Shen patted her head and said, Zi Xian, Grand Gidge is going to play with you a game of bandits capturing people to make them the camp mistress, okay? Zi Xian widened her eyes and asked, the bandit lady? Gu Baishan grabbed the immortal binding rope and began to roleplay. This road was opened by me, this tree was planted by me. If you want to pass through this road, you must pay a toll. She replied, confused, but Zi Xian doesn't have any money. Gu Baishan picked her up and cheerfully said, since that's the case, I find someone like you quite pleasing. From now on, you will be the bandit lady of my king. She cried out in panic, help, Zi Xian is still a child. Gu Baishan snorted and said, and yet you're already crying. He put her down and comforted her, alright, stop crying. You have been captured to the king's mountain stronghold. Do you want me to untie you? Zi Xian replied, yes, yes. With a smile, Gu Baishan said, from now on, you will be my bandit lady. Now call me daddy. Oops, call me husband, and I will untie you, okay? Zi Xian puffed her cheeks, no way. My mother said that is not allowed. The cow seemed somewhat panicked and urged, this situation is not good, move quickly, she will regain her senses soon. Gu Baishan turned around in surprise, your grandpa, isn't there still 2 moments left? The black-faced cow explained, previously, we thought it was because she ate the drunken immortal apple that she ended up like this, but now she has awakened. This means she is following the path of destruction and creation. At this moment, she is taking advantage of this opportunity to break through to the next realm. Therefore, her heart realm will be in a state like that of an immature child. You must seize the time. Gu Baishan, with his eyes wide open, now that things have come to this point, we have no choice. He raised his hand and slapped Zi Xian on the backside, causing her to cry out. He asked, are you calling or not? Zi Xian sobbed, don't, Gidge, please don't. Gu Baishan continued to slap her, threatening, if Zi Xian doesn't call, don't blame Gidge for being heartless. Zi Xian stuttered, I can call, right? Gu Baishan urged, hurry up. She trembled and managed to call out, Grand Gidge. This drove Gu Baishan crazy, and he raised his hand, shouting, call husband. She loudly responded with, huss, huss. Gu Baishan yelled, call quickly. Fearing the pain, she called out, husband. The name In Zi Xian appeared on the 100 Wives book. Gu Baishan's eyes widened, thinking, the 100 Wives book is working. The cow anxiously said, quickly run, she's about to break through. It carried Gu Baishan away, leaving Zi Xian still sobbing. The cow ran at great speed, and Gu Baishan asked it, what about the immortal binding rope? The cow replied, I can summon the immortal binding rope with my thoughts. Right now, preserving our lives is the most important. As dusk gradually fell, the cow and Gu Baishan took a break. The cow exclaimed, that was too dangerous, this young lady has broken through to the golden elixir stage. If we had been just a moment slower, we would have been reincarnated again. Gu Baishan told it, next time, can we avoid doing such extreme things? He clenched his fists and urgently asked, I made a pact with her, so I should be able to use her spiritual energy and spiritual roots, right? He raised his hand and shook his head casually, saying, do we really need to be this afraid? Can she really kill us? The cow sulked and explained, first of all, this is only the initial stage of the pact. You can only utilize a portion of her spiritual energy. Secondly, since she made a pact with you, she cannot directly harm you. He looked somewhat worried and asked, but what if she kills me in a fit of anger? Gu Baishan calmly teased him, saying, what can you do if the cow has already been killed? Of course, you can make beef salad. He held the immortal binding rope and said, that's right. He seemed a bit curious and asked, why did you give me divine weapons like the 100 Wives book and the immortal binding rope? The cow, looking bored, replied, well, there's nothing that can't be said. My body was destroyed, but due to a fortunate chance, I discovered that you meet the requirements for cultivating the 100 Wives book. That's why I gave it to you. Gu Baishan wondered, requirements for cultivation. Does this thing even have requirements? Is it because I know how to woo girls? The cow explained, it's precisely because you have spiritual roots that are completely non-existent in 5 elements, yet you have a body that is extremely young. For an ordinary cultivator, you could be considered a useless person among useless people. Moreover, because your inner fire is too strong, you won't live past 18 years old. But this coincidentally aligns with the cultivation requirements of the 100 Wives book. Gu Beishan asked with interest, 10 years of great Tao, 49 heavenly immortals, hiding apart, perhaps this is the saying, heaven does not cut off a person's path. The cow smiled widely and said, well said. It was worth my effort searching for you for 500 years. You truly are my fated person. Gu Beishan emotionally replied, I can't accept your gift without doing anything in return. Tell me, since you're giving me the 100 Wives book, how do you want me to repay you? The cow turned its head and casually asked, the 100 Wives book is destined for you, so I also have a connection with you. Consider it a good deed to help you once. Is a reward necessary? Gu Beishan stood up and listened as it continued, I only hope that your little guy, after reaching cultivation divinity, will help me recreate a body suitable for my soul. Gu Beishan raised his hand and said, this is a too common scenario. Fine, I agree with you. As long as I reach the so-called divine transformation realm you mentioned, I will definitely help you recreate a body. The cow proudly boasted while carrying him on its back, wait until I find an empress to call you husband, don't say the golden elixir realm, even the cultivation equivalent to the nascent soul realm will be as easy as flipping my hand. Gu Beishan told it, then you should quickly find me an empress. The cow replied a bit sadly, if it were the peak of my time, I could lead you to find an empress. But now, Gu Beishan continued, right now, it's just a cow, isn't it? The cow reminded, once you enter the cultivation path, you must first find a sect to join. Otherwise, how will you have the opportunity to interact with those high and mighty holy sons and holy girls? How can you use the 100 Wives book to enhance your cultivation? Gu Beishan said, holy girls are fine, but holy sons are a no-go. I don't play with gay. The cow said while walking, anyway, I only have a steel waist, not a steel butt. On the side of a certain sect, many people had gathered for the disciple selection competition. The old man in brown stood high and said loudly, the selection rules for new disciples of Fei Yun's sect are as follows. He pointed to the stone tablet and continued, you will take turns attacking this stone tablet. As long as you can move the spiritual energy shield on it, you will be considered to have passed. The short-haired guy below raised his hand and said, let me go first, I can do it. After saying that, he rushed forward, channeling his power, shouted, ha, and struck the stone tablet with all his might. But the stone tablet did not budge at all. The old man in the brown robe said, failure. Which left him as if turned to stone. The crowd behind anxiously discussed, he is the young master of the Zhao family. He started learning martial arts at the age of 8 and entered the refined Qi realm at 13. Even he has failed, how is that possible? The girl next to him sighed, losing hope. After all, there is a difference between the immortal and the mortal. In a world with countless cultivators, how many can truly become immortal? At that moment, a pair of long, slender legs walked over, drawing everyone's attention. It was a girl, accompanied by disciples of the sect, approaching the old man in the brown robe, looking incredibly beautiful. She was the daughter of Master Fei Yun's sect, Nye Xiaotian. She gently turned her head and said, today is the selection of new disciples for the sect, but it has been a hard work for all of you senior brothers. You don't need to worry about me, just continue testing the next person. The old man in the brown robe called out, Sister Xiaotian, you actually came here in person. You are the daughter of the master and the genius of our Fei Yun sect. Just leave these junior recruitment matters to me. Nye Xiaotian replied, okay. The boy and the girl over there looked at Nye Xiaotian with admiration. Is she Nye Xiaotian? She looks so beautiful. I never expected to meet her today. Is she a fairy? She is truly so beautiful that it's hard to look away. The old man in brown raised his hand and said, continue the examination. The next person, prepare to come up. Those without strength should not come up, to avoid wasting time. The cow carrying Gu Beishan ran off, kicking up dust. Come on, come on. The cow ran past the confused crowd. It rushed towards Nye Xiaotian, then jumped, turning around suddenly. The old man in brown saw Gu Beishan's appearance and chased him away directly. where did that Cowherd kid come from? This is not a place for children like you to step into. Hurry up and get lost. The girl and the other person discussed it irritably. After all, they are from the immortal sect, they should still show some compassion. Otherwise, they would have been chased away long ago. That's right. If they came to my house, they would have been beaten up by my family long ago. The cow whipped its tail against Gu Baishan's back, mooing, "Hey, don't sleep anymore, we're here." Gu Baishan stretched, yawned widely, and looked at the crowd. Wow, so many people, are they welcoming me? Several people laughed loudly, looking down on him. Where did this rural boy come from? Do you want to die or don't you want to live anymore to dare to cause trouble here? This is the dwelling place of immortals. Offending an immortal means both you and your cow must die. Gu Baishan's gaze met Nia Xiao Tian's chest. She stepped forward and said, "Young brother, could you please step aside? This place is a heavenly abode, not a spot for you." The cow bleated, "That girl is interesting. At her age, achieving foundation establishment surely means her spiritual roots are not bad." Gu Baishan's eyes lit up, saying, "My 100 Wives book can no longer contain my hunger." At this moment, the Mu Rong family master rushed over, shouting, "Aren't you going to leave? Don't delay my son's test to enter the immortal sect." "What bad luck?" Gu Baishan calmly replied, "What are you making so much noise about?" He then jumped down from the cow and asked, "Why can't my son try, but your son can?" The Mu Rong family master pointed and asked, "Your son? Where is your son? Why can't I see him?" Gu Baishan waved his hand and said, "Look in the mirror, and you'll see him immediately." The Mu Rong family master was a bit foolish and asked, "What? What mirror?" The two people behind him laughed mockingly. "Haha, that guy is the family master of the Mu Rong family, right? Usually, he seems quite fierce, but it turns out he's just a fool." Nia Xiao Tian asked Gu Baishan, "Do you also want to join our Feiyan sect?" Gu Baishan clasped his hands and bowed, smartly showing respect. Listening to the teachings has its order, spells have their highs and lows. Junior brother Gu Baishan greets senior sister. The two in white and black frowned and said, "Is there any elder in the sect who has recently taken on a new disciple?" No. It was said that recently someone had come to the upper gate, and all the elders in the sect were present, but no one mentioned anything about a new disciple being accepted. Nia Xiao Tian was still taken aback by the statement. Listening to the teachings has its order, she thought. This little cowherd can actually say such words. But we don't have anyone like that in our sect. She raised her hand to ask, "Kid, are you trying to show your confidence? Calling me senior sister depends on whether you have enough qualification." Nia Xiao Tian said, "All right, let's see if you can pass this test." Gu Baishan raised his hands and replied, "Everything has its order." His eyes were sharp as he continued, "Since I have come last, I should let these kids try first." Nia Xiao Tian asked, "Are you scared?" Gu Baishan maintained his attitude and said, "Not at all. I just don't want to undermine everyone else's confidence." Nia Xiao Tian asked, "You mean everyone?" Gu Baishan spread his arms to both sides and arrogantly replied, "Of course. I'm not targeting anyone, I'm just saying that everyone here is a little brother." Upon hearing this, everyone was puzzled, not understanding what little brother meant. Could there be some origin or literary reference to it? Surely, the words coming from his mouth were not something pleasant. Nia Xiao Tian, feeling cold and uncomfortable, asked, "What do you think this place is? Today I will let you go first. If you can pass the test, then the rest won't need to try, and everyone will be accepted into the sect." Gu Baishan gave a thumbs up and praised, "Senior sister, you are very generous. What kind of test is it?" The old man in the brown robe raised his hand to the stone tablet and replied, "Attack this stone tablet with your spiritual energy. If the shield on the stone tablet shows any fluctuation, then it is considered a success." Gu Baishan looked bored and retorted, "Attack the stone tablet? What's so interesting about that? The stone tablet can't fight back, can it?" Nia Xiao Tian laughed heartily and gestured, "Then let me personally test you." Gu Baishan was taken aback and asked, "Senior sister, how do you intend to test me?" Nia Xiao Tian smiled and answered, "Because of what you just said, I have decided to battle you. If you win, as you mentioned, there are those before and after, spells of different levels, I will call you senior brother. Gu Beishan clasped his hands and said, senior sister, if I win, you don't need to call me senior brother. He leaned in and whispered, you can just call me husband. Nya Xiao Tian, upon hearing this, quickly stepped back and waved her hand. You, what are you saying? Gu Beishan, amused, chuckled softly to himself. Why is this girl so shy? I can't help but tease her. Another person shouted loudly, did you hear what he said? That cattle herder wants Nya Xiao Tian to call him husband. The girl in the blue dress smiled as well. Maybe he has some special hobby. Is his dream to die at the hands of a fairy? Isn't living better? Gu Beishan scratched his head, unexpectedly reacting strongly. Is that so? It seems senior sister is quite sensitive. Nya Xiao Tian's evil energy erupted outward. She gritted her teeth, staring at him. On the mountain top, two people were looking down. Yin Xian called out, Nya master. Then she looked at the person beside her, puzzled. What happened? Why did you come to check on the rookie selection yourself? The master explained apologetically, I suddenly sensed the aura of the young girl fluctuating just now. The evil energy was dense, it seemed like she wanted to take action against someone. So I investigated a little. Unexpectedly, it bothered the holy girl. I apologize. Yin Xian looked down and said, it's fine, since nothing is going on, it's okay to watch a bit. Below, Nya Xiao Tian had calmed down and replied, okay. She gritted her teeth, angrily saying, you brought this upon yourself. The two disciples behind were still astonished. The wind blade technique of senior sister had indeed become proficient. If it were me, I completely wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack. Humph, don't be shameless. Does senior sister even need to use such techniques to deal with you? The other guy replied, that's right. To make senior sister so serious, it must be senior brother Li Ling who has been in seclusion for many days. Gu Beishan eagerly clasped his hands and shouted, no more words, let's get started. Nya Xiao Tian, wielding the divine weapon, said, don't say I'm bullying you. Little guy, you can go first. Gu Beishan clasped his hands in thanks, senior sister, then I'll strike first. Saying that, he ran off, and added, a promise once made is hard to break. I'm going to review for a while, wait for me, senior sister. The crowd watching the match couldn't help but laugh. They said, is he trying to run away? I still held hope that he could defeat Nya Xiao Tian so we could all join the sect. Gu Beishan ran to the cow, calling, Yo brother, you still haven't taught me how to use the power of the 100 Wives book to fight. Hurry up, teach me a bit. The cow gazed at him with an indescribable depth. In order to make Gu Beishan anxious, he had to press for answers. Yo brother, what are you doing? This is an important moment, but it only let out a sound of moo, turning its gaze elsewhere as if it didn't want to talk, making Gu Beishan even more panicked. Yo brother, please speak properly. What does moo mean? The cow, at a loss, said, I told you to take in that girl, why are you provoking her? It was sweating profusely, sincerely saying, I will pretend to be an ordinary cow, and when you die, I can still burn incense for you. Gu Beishan's face turned pale, unable to believe. Yo brother, are you joking with me? I've already said those words. You need to come up with something. The cow was at a loss again, chewing grass helplessly, causing Gu Beishan to kneel down and desperately call, Yo brother, help me. The master on the mountain had a displeased expression and said, such a shame. Xiao Tian's temperament is due to my indulgence. Yin Xian looked a bit stunned and said, that cowherd, how could he be a person in the illusion? She recalled the moment she was spanked by Gu Beishan and screamed in pain, then wondered, how could this be appearing in reality? Master once said that few practitioners ever meet their soulmate. She looked down at him, feeling somewhat worried. If he was really just a normal teenager but ended up getting killed right in front of me, it might harm my heart realm. Should I intervene later? Gu Beishan on this side was still pleading with the cow, Yo brother, stop causing trouble. Quickly tell me how to use this in battle. He pointed and said, if you don't, that girl opposite me will cut me to death with her sickle. The cow looked at him, then opened its mouth and began to teach, awaken your spirit, channel spiritual energy from the 100 Wives book, visualize your attack in your mind, and then just attack. Gu Beishan still didn't understand, asking, what is spirit? How do I awaken it? And where is the spiritual energy? Suddenly, Nia Xiao Tian appeared behind him, speaking, it was supposed to be just a competition, but you insulted me. She raised her sickle, deciding, if I don't kill you today, what will happen to the face of the Feiyan sect? Faced with Nia Xiao Tian's intimidation, Gu Beishan closed his eyes and concentrated. The crowd outside thought he was foolish and laughed. Haha, about to die and yet very calm. Being killed by Fairy Senior Sister, is that dying without regret? You, the Cowherd, even though you are dead, you will live forever in my memories. Oh, poor child. Unexpectedly, Gu Beishan over here had gathered spiritual energy and shouted loudly, Great Flood Water Technique. The disciples stared wide-eyed at the Great Flood Water Technique he spoke of. The old man in brown also asked, what kind of spiritual skill is this? Even the cow looked confused and said, why have I never heard of that before? Behind Gu Beishan at this moment, a shark appeared. It roared and then circled around where Nia Xiao Tian was standing. She was astonished and stood there dumbfounded, saying, how is this possible? The old man in brown looked up and asked, who on earth is this deity? How could they have such a method? The disciples in the sect turned pale and said, could it be just a good-for-nothing root? Another one added, that's right, it must just be a show. He's just a cowherd. Only the cow knew and smiled, praising, just stepped into the path of cultivation for a few short days, I only said a few words but was able to achieve this. He was delighted, old man Nyo has been reborn, there is hope now. The master up here was equally surprised. I didn't expect that in such a waterless place, one could harness water attributes spiritual energy to this extent. He laughed, interesting. No wonder he dares to challenge Xiao Tian. This little guy is indeed not simple. Yin Xian felt an indescribable familiarity. This cowherd boy's spiritual energy, this type of spiritual energy feels so familiar, it's just like my own spiritual energy. This feeling is truly strange. Dream figure of mine, who exactly are you? The shark was getting closer and closer. Nia Xiao Tian then said, that cowherd boy. Then he threw the scythe forward, exclaiming, I didn't expect you to have some skills. Her scythe flew onto Gu Beishan's shark, causing the disciples to stare in awe once again. Shen Feng's scythe is truly formidable. Ha ha ha, Xiao Tian is indeed the daughter of the master. Gu Beishan's arrogance soared, saying, Nia Xiao Tian, the more you resist, the more excited I become. Although I am not Ning Shai, today you cannot escape. He waved his hand forward and shouted. The shark turned around and charged at Shen Feng. Gu Beishan, rushing over, also provocatively asked, so, senior sister. Is my junior brother's shark big? Nia Xiao Tian coldly waved his hand forward and commanded, chop. Shen Feng raised the wind blade in front of the shark and swung it down. Unexpectedly, the shark bit the wind blade. The powerful pressure spread out, causing the disciples below to gather their strength to stand firm. Gu Beishan suddenly asked, what kind of strength is this? The old man in brown was also astonished, this little guy can actually compete with the senior sister to this extent. The master above noticed something was off. He frowned and speculated, this guy is definitely not an ordinary cowherder. Yin Xian next to him was just praying for Gu Beishan, don't let anything happen to you. Shen Feng pressed the scythe down with force, and Gu Beishan's shark bit down without releasing. Gu Beishan said, senior sister, let's see who can hold on longer. The wind blade suddenly made a cracking sound, and the shark stopped its movement. Nia Xiao Tian could not understand what was happening. Question, what's going on? Suddenly, Gu Beishan's shark bit through Shen Feng's wind blade, causing it to falter and his body to spin to one side. The disciples were all terrified, how could this be? The wind blade was broken. Not only that, the shark gathered its strength and launched an attack at Shen Feng as if nothing had happened. Shen Feng was pushed back and trapped inside the water bubble. The shark immediately charged forward, biting Shen Feng, causing the water bubble to spin. Shen Feng gradually started to blur. The disciples exclaimed, the figure is being torn apart. Nia Xiaotian rushed over, her earlier arrogance completely vanished. How could this be? Shenfeng's wind blade fell down and began to disappear, shocking her to the point that she could only say, "How could this be?" At that moment, the shark lunged at her with its mouth wide open, wanting to swallow her whole. Nia Xiaotian shrank back, only able to scream, "Ah!" After a moment of inactivity, she looked up and saw that the shark had come to a complete stop. Gu Baishan approached, asking, "Senior sister, are you alright?" He reached out, saying, "Come on, let me support you." Gu Baishan casually reminded her, "You still owe me a call, senior sister." At this moment, a wave of power descended, and a figure gradually appeared, stepping forward. The master shouted loudly, "You brat, dare you!" The disciples pointed and said, "Nia master has come in person." The master pointed fiercely and asked, "Brat, why aren't you getting out of the way? Do you want me to take action to invite you out?" Gu Baishan, on the other hand, remained calmer. He lightly called out, "Senior sister, could it be that you are afraid of the shark?" He snapped his fingers, and an illusory image appeared, causing Nia Xiaotian to shout in fear, "Dad!" The disciple behind casually remarked, "Who is this cowherd? Hold on, who is this talented young man? How could he defeat the master's daughter from Fei Yun sect?" The girl said, "It seems his name is something like Da, something like Tu Ha Da, Tu Ha whatever." They speculated, the sect master and the elders have all arrived. This little guy will definitely not have a good ending. Even the holy girl of the supreme sect is present. Our Fei Yun sect will lose face this time. The master frowned in frustration and thought, Xiao Tian is the most gifted seed of our sect. Glancing at Gu Baishan, he became even more irritated. But now, I was easily defeated by that little guy who came out of nowhere. Yin Zixian stood behind everyone, understanding silently, Nialan Feng definitely wouldn't casually strike at a junior. But perhaps Nialan Feng would take action to protect the dignity of the Fei Yun sect. There's a chance he might even kill. She was even more worried, although this guy is strong, he's still no match for Nialan Feng. Should I step in to help? Over here, Gu Baishan was leaning closely against Nia Xiaotian, gently calling, "Senior sister." Then he reassured her, "No need to be afraid." After that, he whispered in her ear, "I'm very gentle." This made Nia Xiaotian's cheeks flush, her body felt hot, and she thought, "My ears are itching, this feeling is so strange." She regained her composure and said, "If you dare to hurt me, my father will kill you." But Gu Baishan was bolder, moving closer, chuckling softly. He wrapped his arm around her waist and squeezed, causing Nia Xiaotian to gasp a few times. Gu Baishan let her go and repeated, "Senior sister, you lost. So shouldn't you fulfill your promise from the bet?" Gu Baishan sneered and asked, "Have you forgotten, senior sister? The bet was that you have to call me your husband." Nia Xiaotian blushed, closed her eyes, and remained silent. Gu Baishan, amused, said, "What? Are you pretending to sleep? Is that how it works?" His expression was mischievous as he called out, "Senior sister, stop pretending. I know you're not asleep. If you keep faking it, don't blame me for being impolite." Gu Baishan leaned in, lifted her chin, and reminded her, "Senior sister, if you can't keep your promise from the bet, your Dao heart might be harmed." The disciples on this side found the situation a bit off. "Look at that. What's going on here? Nia Xiaotian isn't resisting at all. Why is it so ambiguous all of a sudden? Are they really planning a kiss and to love each other for life?" Gu Baishan looked at Nia Xiaotian with deep affection, moving closer to her fair neck in a suggestive manner. "You're so talented. If something so trivial could disturb your Dao heart, if it goes overboard, could you really bear to leave me alone in this world?" Nia Lan Feng went mad, unleashing her powers, and shouted, "This brat!" He grimaced and shouted, "You dare to provoke Xiaotian." Nia Lan Feng gathered his energy, ready to strike, and said, "Look at my move." Without thinking further, he unleashed a powerful flame attack. The disciples and elders all stepped back from that force. Nia Lan Feng retracted his technique, and smoke filled the air. In front of him was a bull using a shield to block the attack. Gu Beishan set down Nia Xiaotian and called out, "Yo brother, you finally made a move." The bull looked confused and turned to ask, "Little guy, you already know my cultivation, did you force me to act on purpose?" Gu Beishan honestly replied, "I didn't know at first. Last night you kept kicking around in your sleep, so I used a fairy rope to tie you up. As a result, you broke free after a while." He raised his hand and said, "That means your cultivation is likely above the golden elixir realm." The bull sighed and looked at him in frustration. "Enough. I didn't expect to be outsmarted by you. Well, at least it proves I didn't misjudge. Your little guy is indeed quite clever." The disciples nearby pointed and were once again astonished. That old bull was actually able to withstand a strike from Master Nia. How is this possible? If this can be done, then that old cow can't be a strong one in the nascent soul realm. Nia Lanfeng frowned and introduced himself. "I am the master of the Fei Yun sect, Nia Lanfeng." He raised his hand and asked, "Which sect are you an expert from? Please reveal your name." Nia Lanfeng clenched his hand, placing it behind him, still bleeding, thinking to himself, "This old cow is not simple. Just now, it was only the backlash, and my right hand almost got crippled." The atmosphere grew tense as Brother Nyo remained silent, which weighed even heavier on Nia Lanfeng. But Brother Nyo merely mooed and lifted his head to chew grass. Nia Lanfeng looked a bit dazed, thinking, "What is happening? Does it not understand human speech? Could it really just be an ordinary cow?" Gu Beishan then mocked, "Senior, I've heard of playing music for cattle, but I didn't expect you to confide in a cow." He jumped onto the cow and asked, "So, do you have your eye on my mount? Too bad it's a male cow, otherwise, I would have helped you out." The disciples behind were astonished. "What? That cow is actually his mount?" The girl was also curious, who exactly was that young man? His mount could compete with Nia Master. The grazing cow looked back and thought, "That annoying kid, your ability to perform in front of others is indeed quite strong. Let you show off this time." At this moment, Nia Xiaotian ran over, calling, "Dad." Pointing at Gu Beishan, she complained, "He's bullying me. Dad, you have to seek justice for me." Nia Lanfeng asked anxiously, "Xiaotian, are you okay?" Gu Beishan raised his hand and asked, "Senior sister, you still haven't fulfilled your promise to call me husband. Is the Fei Yun sect really lacking in integrity like this?" Hearing this, the disciples were furious and shouted, "Insulting my senior sister and injuring my master is something we cannot tolerate. Today, the Fei Yun sect will fight to the bitter end with you." They unleashed their spiritual energy but were met with a loud shout, "Enough. Stop it right now." Yin Zixian asked, "With so many people joining in, haven't we lost enough face today?" The disciples looked at Yin Zixian in surprise. "She is the holy girl Yin Zixian." They all folded their hands, "Greetings, holy girl." Nia Lanfeng also folded his hands, "Greetings, holy girl. I wonder if the holy girl has any instructions." Gu Beishan was astonished, thinking, "Is it her? It really is a narrow path for enemies." He asked, "Nyo brother, what should we do? Damn, how did she end up here? Isn't she just walking into a trap?" The cow once again broke into a cold sweat, saying, "Dealing with one Nia Lanfeng would be challenging enough, but adding a Yin Zixian means this trip might be the end for me." Yin Zixian stepped forward, complimenting, "This young hero doesn't seem to have low cultivation." The cow secretly thought, "I'm screwed." The two pale-faced ones thought, "This life is a loss." Yin Zixian then said, "I don't know which sect you come from, could you tell me your name?" Gu Beishan was stunned, bewildered. The cow said, "It seems the lady has forgotten about her husband." Gu Beishan adjusted his mood and replied, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must be embarrassing the holy girl. I am the seventh disciple of Qing Nyo Venerable One, Gu Beichuan." Upon hearing this, the disciples whispered among themselves, "What kind of being is Qing Nyo Venerable One?" The male disciple said, "Could it be the expert demon clan?" The female disciple sighed, "A human clan yet comes to be a disciple of the demon clan. Don't talk nonsense, be careful or you might get beaten to death." The long-bearded elder pointed and said, "Qing Nyo Venerable One. I have never heard that name before, the fringe-haired elder added, but daring to claim to be a venerable one, who isn't a great power up high. The disciple also stepped forward and spoke loudly. If it's true, then I'm afraid the Fei Yun sect cannot afford to offend. It's better not to do anything reckless. Yin Xian raised her hand and said, if it's not Yuan Ying, one cannot claim to be a venerable one. She frowned slightly and asked, who on earth are you? She looked at the cow and thought, nascent soul realm. Qing Niu venerable one. But this is obviously just an ordinary cow. Nie Lanfeng's expression was also unpleasant, thinking, his mount actually has cultivation in the nascent soul realm. The strength of Qing Niu venerable one must be even more formidable. Nie Xiao Tian was also worried, thinking, Qing Niu venerable one. If we offend him, will the Fei Yun sect face disaster because of this? Before anything else, Nie Lanfeng laughed heartily, haha, as if they were close. So it turns out to be little Guy Beishen. Back when I and your master Qing Niu arranged this engagement, you were just a child. In the blink of an eye, you've grown up so much. Gu Beishen scratched his cheek and asked, what engagement are you talking about? Nie Lanfeng reproached him, you little rascal, just like your master, you don't know how to cherish anything. He took his hand and pulled him along in a friendly manner. With your master backing you up, you shouldn't be afraid of this future father-in-law taking care of you. Gu Beishen was completely lost and continuously stammered. Senior, I. Nie Lanfeng grimaced for a moment, spoke softly, and threatened. Little guy, just follow my lead. If Xiao Tian gets involved, he glared, veins bulging, threatening. Even if I have to fight a bloody battle with your mysterious master, today I will make you die at my hands. Gu Beishen broke out in cold sweat, looking over at the cow, thinking, the situation is getting more complicated, I can only count on your brother. The cow, also helpless, said, what are you looking at me for? It turned around and feigned ignorance, saying, resolve it yourself. Gu Beishen shouted, Nyo old man. Your grandfather. Forget it. Just play along with him for now. After all, I only need one title of husband. He adjusted his mood, let out a sigh, and then turned to clasp his hands and introduced himself, the seventh disciple of Qing Niu Venerable One, Gu Beishen, pays respect to you, uncle. The disciple listening was surprised and said, uncle. So he is the fiancé of Nie Xiaotian. The girl beside him was also confused, but they just fought a moment ago, right? Today's events are truly overwhelming, making it hard for people to accept. Gu Beishen followed Nie Lanfeng's instructions and acted. Junior was ordered by Master to descend the mountain and come to Fei Yun sect. Master said if I met Xiao Tian, I shouldn't recognize her immediately, but should engage in a fight first. He said this, then knelt on one knee and expressed his feelings. If I am not a match for Xiao Tian, then I have no right to be her husband. His expression shifted to sorrowful, conflicted, and he lowered his eyes to continue. Junior accidentally injured Xiao Tian. Uncle can punish me however you wish, Junior absolutely has no objections. The cow watched his performance and couldn't help but exclaim, wow. He couldn't help but exclaim, this kid really knows how to fabricate stories and can even make them sound reasonable. The disciples understood and said, so it's a son-in-law selection event? Suddenly, we have to eavesdrop and participate in a trial, not to mention eating a ton of dog food. A disciple from the old man with the long beard questioned, I never heard that senior sister had a fiancé. He blurted out, Li Ziling's senior brother is in seclusion and has always been paying attention to senior sister. The guy next to him gestured, Shu, don't go looking for trouble. Yin Xian suddenly rushed out, Nye master, do you actually know this Qing Niu Venerable One? Nye Lanfeng already felt quite embarrassed but still clasped his hands and said, please forgive me, holy girl. Back when I was discussing the marriage contract with Qing Niu Venerable One, I thought it was just a joke, but who knew he was so serious? Yin Xian's eyes revealed an unmistakable sadness as she looked at Gu Beishen, thinking, why do I feel this strange sensation in my heart? Why is there this feeling of disappointment? Nye Lanfeng turned and called out, Xiao Tian, why don't you come over here to meet your Beishen Gij? Nye Xiao Tian looked at Gu Beishen and asked, is he, then blushed slightly and said, is he my fiancé? She observed Gu Beishen carefully and praised, although his clothes are shabby, upon closer inspection, his appearance is quite elegant. Moreover, he seems to be about the same age as me, but his cultivation is so high. Nia Xiaotian stared at him in amazement. Nia Lanfeng then took his daughter's hand and said loudly, "Today is the day the Fei Yun sect recruits students, and it's also the day our master welcomes a good son-in-law into the family. Truly a double joy." At this point, even if Gu Beishan had a thick face, he would have to feel embarrassed and stammer. Uncle, does the bet between me and Xiao Tian still count?" Nia Lanfeng raised his hand authoritatively and said, "Of course, the bet still counts. What my daughter has promised is what I have promised." Gu Beishan happily clapped his hands and praised, "Uncle truly keeps his promises. It seems my master was not mistaken." Nia Lanfeng, having a precious son-in-law, was also generous and loudly declared, "Based on Xiao Tian's bet, I announce that today all disciples participating in the entrance exam, whether they pass or not, will be accepted into the sect." Everyone was overjoyed upon hearing this. What? Did we hear wrong? Everyone was accepted into the Fei Yun sect. Then we are becoming cultivators. Gu Beishan behind kindly asked Xiao Tian, "Just now you said that if you lose, you would have to call me husband." Nia Xiao Tian's face flushed, and she looked down without answering. Nia Lanfeng called out, "New disciples, quickly thank senior brother Beishan." The group of disciples rushed from all directions, calling, "Senior brother Beishan. You are truly my benefactor. It's not too much to call you adoptive father. Junior brother thanks senior brother Beishan." They grabbed his shoulders and legs, lifting Gu Beishan high. "Long live senior brother Beishan. Long live Fei Yun sect. Long live senior brother Beishan. Long live Fei Yun sect." Gu Beishan, being praised, was thinking, this old fox Nia Lanfeng. He looked blankly, pondering life. I didn't expect to cover up the husband matter like this. Yin Zixian, standing behind, felt indescribable emotions. Is he really the fiancé of Nia Xiaotian? She looked up at Gu Beishan, confused. Clearly, this is our first meeting, but why am I feeling jealous? Nia Lanfeng clasped his hands and called out, "Holy girl." This remark interrupted Yin Zixian's thoughts. Nia Lanfeng said, "This is not a place to talk. Please come inside the hall to discuss." The two went to the living room. Nia Lanfeng then recounted everything, furrowing his brow as he said, "Holy girl, do not blame me. Just now at the mountain gate, it was only because I was concerned for the larger situation that I had to use such a lowly tactic." Yin Zixian remained silent, her attitude unchanged. She slowly spoke up and asked, "The engagement that Gu Beishan and Nia Xiaotian mentioned, is it really just a temporary fabrication?" Nia Lanfeng replied, "What I said earlier was only to avoid leaving a mental scar in Xiaotian's heart realm, and also to protect the reputation of our Fei Yun sect." Yin Zixian sighed and said, "I had guessed it before, but I didn't expect it to be true. It's good that he has no engagement." She looked at Nia Lanfeng and asked further, "So who is the person called Qing Niu Venerable One?" Nia Lanfeng did not know either and replied, "Qing Niu Venerable One. I have never heard that name." However, Gu Beishan is young yet possesses such cultivation, and he also has a mount in the nascent soul realm by his side. Clearly he is not an ordinary person. Yin Zixian was also confused and asked, "So what should we do now?" Directly declaring the annulment of the engagement would certainly make the Fei Yun sect lose all its face, right? Nia Lanfeng cunningly replied, "Don't worry, holy girl, I already have a plan. I will definitely not let the sect lose all its face." On Nia Xiaotian's side, she was standing in the courtyard, hesitating and sighing. She was puzzled and thought, if senior brotherly Ling knew about my engagement, I wonder what he would think. She stepped forward, reached for a branch of flowers on the tree, and said, "The flowers on the tree are already ripe. I guess he must be about to break through to the golden elixir realm, right?" At this moment, another hand reached up and snapped the branch of flowers, making her stop and look over. Gu Beishan brought the flower branch to her and elegantly asked, "Senior sister, it seems you have a taste for enjoying flowers and admiring the plum blossoms here." Nia Xiaotian just said, "What does it have to do with you?" when he placed the flower branch in her hand. She blushed slightly, turned away, and said, "What does it have to do with you?" Gu Bei-shen looked up at the tree and happily recited a few lines of poetry. Testing the skillful dexterity of slender hands on display, the flowers fragrant with dewdrops dampened the thin attire with light sweats. Seeing her husband come, the mismatched shoes and golden hairpin slipped away, bashfully running to the door, glancing back shyly. His hair swayed gently with the wind, carrying a faintly lingering smile. Nya Xiaotian was taken aback, thinking, but why is she smelling the plum blossom? Looking at the branch of plum blossoms, she said again, but why is she smelling the plum blossom? She lowered her head and said, how annoying, only knowing how to mock me. But this name doesn't seem that unpleasant after all. She turned her head and said, this place is my private garden. Please, young master, go back. Gu Bei-shen said, why are you still calling me young master? Senior sister, shouldn't you change your words? Behind them, Nia Lan Feng approached with Yin Zixian and asked, I didn't expect my son-in-law. Yin Zixian frowned, thinking, his talent is exceptional, far surpassing those self-proclaimed elegant ones at Cloud Heaven Palace. She was annoyed, thinking, but it's for another woman. Gu Bei-shen glanced over, feeling uncomfortable, secretly thinking, this troublesome matter is coming again. Well, let's continue with the act. As long as they can still be cautious, there is still a chance to turn the situation around. He clasped his hands in salute. Gu Bei-shen greets Nya Master and greets Yin Holy Girl. Nya Lan Feng said, Xiao Tian, you go rest. I have matters to discuss with Bei-shen. Nya Xiao Tian replied, yes. Then she left. Gu Bei-shen rolled his eyes and thought, the atmosphere was so wonderful just now, and then Nya Lan Feng ruined it. Nya Lan Feng suddenly grabbed his hand and said seriously, Gu Bei-shen, I don't care what your identity is, even if you really are a disciple of Qin Nyo Venerable One. His face darkened as he emphasized, my daughter is not someone to be bullied by others. Gu Bei-shen was taken aback, thinking, no more acting. He didn't dare to look him in the eye, thinking, the old man from Guanyu isn't here, and this guy wants to turn the tables. Am I in danger? With no way to move forward or backward, he tried to ask seriously, so, Nya Master, what exactly do you want? Nya Lan Feng released his hand and replied, I have decided that starting today, I, Nya Lan Feng, will invite you to join the Fei Yun sect as a guest elder. Gu Bei-shen broke out in a sweat, unable to believe it. He thought, what the hell? How can you say such words in such an arrogant tone? His eyes darkened as he thought, it seems I really have to act to the point of touching someone's heart. I see you as a kind of father-in-law, but you actually see yourself as my real father. He raised his hand and calmly said, thank you, Nya Master, for your kind offer, but elder sounds too old. How about calling me guest young master instead? Nya Lan Feng clapped his hands and called out, someone, bring the items here. 2 female disciples brought clothing and a sword. The girl said, elder, please change your clothes. Gu Bei-shen donned the attire and, along with the sword, exuded an exceptional charm. Even Yin Zixian was captivated by his appearance and thought, Gu Bei-shen, so he can be so handsome and imposing. She was even more surprised and exclaimed, he can freely switch between the mortal realm and the immortal sect. Nya Lan Feng laughed heartily and praised, my son-in-law truly is a talent. Gu Bei-shen grimaced, thinking, son-in-law. I disdain that. This old man is starting the engagement act again. Seizing the opportunity, Nya Lan Feng declared, Gu Bei-shen and Xiao Tian will choose a wedding date and become Dao partners. Gu Bei-shen was astonished, not expecting him to be serious. Old man, it was just a cooperation for acting, but you really mean it? Yin Zixian was also confused and asked, Nya Master, what do you mean? Didn't you say there was basically no engagement before? Nya Lan Feng clenched his fist, his expression unchanged, and stated a shocking revelation, indeed, Xiao Tian has feelings for Gu Bei-shen. This marriage not only has the potential to attract talent to the sect but also to protect the sect's reputation. He turned around and said, it could also help Xiao Tian stabilize her heart realm and prevent her mind demons. Gu Beishan was taken aback, unsure of what expression to show, thinking, damn it, I really got myself into a bind this time. If I really have to marry Nye Xiao Tian, how can I still flirt around? How can I focus on guiding others? How can I add more people to the 100 Wives book? He clasped his hands together and firmly said to him, I have agreed to be a guest elder. But a marriage of such significance cannot be so casually arranged. He emphasized, I am a responsible man. This matter must. Suddenly, a sword appeared, startling Gu Beishan as it pierced into his leg. Almost losing the chance to flirt, he exclaimed, ouch, ouch. Yin Zixian withdrew her move and continued the unfinished sentence of his, I do not agree to this marriage. Her attitude caused Gu Beishan to feel anxious, thinking, oh no, she must have recognized me. He recalled the situation at that time, feeling even more startled. That day he was tied up like that, and today was he really going to experience intense transmission? Nye Lanfeng was visibly irritated, still clasping his hands as he asked, Holy girl, what do you mean? He was determined, emphasizing, even though you are the supreme sect holy girl, you are still beneath my sect. He frowned and said, what you said seems a bit inappropriate. Looking over, he saw Yin Zixian take out a token, and exclaimed. Nye Lanfeng looked suspicious and asked, what's that? Yin Zixian replied, Cloud Heaven Palace Command. Then she said, seeing this token is like seeing the palace master. This marriage shall be annulled. Nye Lanfeng clasped his hands and asked, Holy girl, why use your power to coerce others? He boldly said, but even the supreme sect has no right to interfere in the affairs of the Nye family. Yin Zixian raised the Cloud Heaven command, speaking firmly, this holy girl will accept Nye Xiao Tian into the Yunzi book. From today on, he will be named Nye Yun Tian. From today on, he will be a disciple of the supreme sect. She raised her voice, asking again, the marriage was decided by the sect master, does Nye master have any objections? Nye Lanfeng was somewhat agitated and replied, Nye Lanfeng obeys the orders of the palace master. He smiled widely, expressing his gratitude, and thought with joy, Xiao Tian has entered the heavenly palace Yunzi book, and his future accomplishments are limitless and extremely promising. Ha ha ha. Gu Beishan was still standing in a daze, but he felt somewhat relieved. He thought to himself, I was worried about how to tactfully decline this marriage proposal, but now I don't have to worry anymore. He looked over at Yin Zixian and sighed, indeed, taking a concubine must be approved by the main wife. Yin Zixian suddenly approached, which surprised Gu Beishan a bit. Yin Zixian said, this time, I am here on a mission to receive Nye Yun Tian, but there is still one thing I need Master Nye's help with. Gu Beishan scratched his face and wondered, if you need Master Nye's help, why is the main wife looking at me? I'm not even the master of the Fei Yun sect. Nye Lanfeng replied seriously, holy girl, you can entrust me with this. He asserted, if this is something that the Fei Yun sect can do, we will definitely do our utmost. Yin Zixian said, this time I came to the Fei Yun sect to explore a secret realm. I hope Master Nye can assign 3 people to accompany me. Nye Lanfeng said, I will order the Grand Elder and the other 2 elders to go together, coordinating with full effort. Yin Zixian raised a hand to refuse, the realm of the 3 elders is too high. I see that Xiao Tian and Gu Beishan are very suitable. Master just needs to arrange for one more person. Gu Beishan was stunned, thinking, I told you, why do you keep staring at me? Turns out you want me to serve as a soldier. His face darkened, feeling unhappy, thinking, with what you just did, if you take me with you, who knows how you will treat me. He thought for a moment and then boldly said, is this holy girl mistaken? I am not a member of the Fei Yun sect. He didn't hesitate to speak frankly, moreover, my cultivation is still lacking, please forgive this young master for being unable to help. If there's nothing else, I respectfully take my leave. Nye Lanfeng said, Gu Beishan, since you defeated Xiao Tian, you are already a part of my Fei Yun sect. He clenched his fist, irritated, and asked, furthermore, I also bestowed upon you the status of guest sect. How can you be disrespectful to the holy girl? Gu Beishan did not back down and retorted, your hat is too big for you. I only agree to be a guest elder, and your sect's matters have nothing to do with me. His gaze was cold as he questioned him. Yin Zixian suddenly approached Gu Beishan and spoke, this holy girl will certainly not make things difficult for Gu young master. She placed her hand on the sword, frightening Gu Beishan, who quickly adjusted his demeanor. He coughed lightly and clasped his hands, saying, whatever the holy girl says, I, as a young master, have always enjoyed helping others, finding joy in assisting people. If I see an elderly person in need, I will help them immediately. He slightly bowed and continued, if the holy girl needs my assistance, then I, as a young master, will definitely not refuse. Yin Zixian drew her sword, smiled, and replied, then I, this holy girl, would like to thank Gu young master in advance for your support. Gu Beishan cheerfully exclaimed, it is only right to do so. By the gate of the small courtyard behind the mountain, Gu Beishan spoke as he walked, Yin Zixian, right? Holy girl, isn't it? Didn't you always call me your husband? He raised both hands confidently and declared, wait until I take in a few junior wives for my 100 Wives book and practice my techniques like pushing mountains with a single palm and breaking rivers with 2 fingers. We will definitely come with swords to make you pay back 100-fold. At this moment, someone called out, senior brother. The female junior sister and the male disciple approached, congratulating him, senior brother has been promoted to guest elder. Thanks to the elder, we were able to enter Fei Yun sect. Gu Beishan asked, is it you guys? You catch on to information quickly. The male disciple handed over a wooden box and said, I specially brought some supplements for the elder, hoping the elder will accept them. Gu Beishan tilted his head in surprise, you even know about this? He continued to ask, by the way, what exactly is the background of Cloud Heaven Palace? The female disciple replied, Cloud Heaven Palace is one of the 4 major sects of the Wu Ji Empire, located in the center of the Wu Ji Empire, controlling 5 regions. The strong members within the sect are numerous as clouds. She excitedly said, with 1,000 years of inheritance, their strength is unfathomable. Just listening to this, Gu Beishan was already drenched in sweat, thinking to himself, for others, it is a holy land for cultivation, but for me, it is no different from a factory producing chargers for the 100 Wives book. He thought for a moment and then dismissed it, sneering, I thought it would be a fearsome sect. Turns out it's just a holy land for cultivation in a small part of the Wu Ji Empire. The male disciple looked at the female disciple and asked, small land? She looked at him as well and repeated, the Wu Ji Empire is a small land. The male disciple presented the box and flattered, elder is truly extraordinary, with such spirit. In the entire Cloud Heaven Palace, or rather, throughout the Wu Ji Empire, how many people possess such vision? At that moment, a cow's moo sounded. Gu Beishan cleared his throat and took the item from him, I'll accept the gift. This young master feels a bit tired, you all can go now. The male disciple clasped his hands and said, from now on, every 1st and 15th day of the month, we will definitely offer generous gifts, absolutely not neglecting. The female disciple also sincerely said, I hope the elder will not find it lacking. After a while, Gu Beishan sat in meditation, while the cow beside him was eating ginseng and said, impressive. Just by your tongue, you could become a guest elder and receive so many good things. Be sure to ask them to give more next time. Gu Beishan stood up and cursed, damn it. You almost got me killed. It was said to only go to the sect, but the result is that you tricked me into becoming the son-in-law of someone else's master. He was annoyed and immediately questioned it, moreover, my first wife in the golden elixir realm is here. If it weren't for my excellent acting skills, you would have been turned into steak by now. The cow clicked its tongue and sighed, but your little guy really knows how to talk big. Is the Wu Ji Empire really just a small piece of land? How can you talk so confidently? Gu Beishan smiled and said, what do you mean talking big? Why have you stopped speaking, old cow? The cow, angry, swished its tail and shouted, get lost, making Gu Beishan hold his butt and exclaim, ouch, ouch, ouch. He turned around and angrily asked, what are you doing, old cow? You have no martial ethics, sneaking up on your teammate. The cow said seriously, alright, back to the main topic. Tomorrow's exploration mission in the secret realm is a good training opportunity. Your abilities are now sufficient for you to go alone. I will stay at the sect and wait for you to return. Gu Beishen was surprised and asked, aren't you going? He felt a bit sad and asked, old man cow, do you not care about me anymore? With the current strength, being able to use only 3 parts of Yin Zi Xian's power is completely insufficient to deal with the experts from outside. The cow tilted its head and explained, that's because she doesn't have feelings for you. As long as the feelings between the two of you increase, you'll be able to use her cultivation more. Gu Beishen, feeling self-satisfied, praised himself, so my first wife already has feelings for me. Indeed, my charm is extraordinary. He frowned, then looked down at his hands, calming his breath to sense. He truly felt that the true qi within his body had become more abundant. The cow sweated, surprised, a pure young body cannot cultivate, it's a rare occurrence in 1,000 years. Could it be that this little guy is truly of the ancient clan? The next morning, at the Fei Yun Sect Square, Yin Zi Xian, Gu Beishen, Nia Xiao Tian, and Li Ziling were present. Yin Zi Xian said, if everyone is here, Master Nia, please give the order. Nia Lan Feng announced solemnly, guest Gu Beishen is cooperating with Holy Girl of the Supreme Sect Cloud Heaven Palace to carry out a mission. Disciples of Fei Yun Sect Li Ziling and Nia Xiao Tian are to obey the Holy Girl's orders and set off together. No mistakes are allowed. He spoke while sternly reminding them. Nia Xiao Tian and Li Ziling clasped their hands together and said in unison, we obey your command, Master. Li Ziling called out, Xiao Tian, this time senior brother is in seclusion, and his cultivation has progressed. This time, senior brother must take good care of me. Yin Zi Xian looked over at them and clearly noticed that Li Ziling had feelings for Nia Xiao Tian. She suddenly snorted coldly and said, if this mission is completed successfully, Li Ziling, if you perform well, she promised, this holy girl will reward you with the qualification to cultivate at the Supreme Sect. Li Ziling clasped her hands and said, thank you, holy girl, for your grace. This time, I will undoubtedly risk danger and spare no effort. He was delighted, thinking to himself, as long as this mission is successful, I will have the chance to go to the Supreme Sect with junior sister Xiao Tian. By then, how can I not win junior sister's heart? He frowned and thought further, what could be difficult about having master withdraw the engagement of Xiao Tian? Gu Beishen looked at them, a little stunned, wondering, my first wife just said that, and those two have a reason to go to the Supreme Sect. So what can I do to be able to go? His face reluctantly twitched as he thought, why not ask to see? He picked up the fan and approached, calling out, Holy Girl Lord, this young master promised to help you yesterday, but I never said it would be for free. Yin Zi Xian turned around and asked, Gu young master, do you have any conditions? Just say it. Gu Beishen pretended to think for a moment and said, upon further reflection, it seems this young master really doesn't lack anything. He coldly said, then I hope the Holy Girl Lord will agree to one thing for me. Li Ziling crossed her arms and huffed, don't lack anything. Who do you think you are? He reached out toward Yin Zi Xian, aggressively continuing, the person you are facing is the Holy Girl of Cloud Heaven Palace, one of the 4 major sects of the Wu Ji Empire. The rewards I can give you might not be anything a small sect like Fei Yun Sect could ever hope to obtain. Upon hearing this, Gu Beishen mocked, so Fei Yun Sect is that poor, huh? This made him furious, and he pointed, growling each word, you, little guy. Yin Zi Xian asked, so is it that young master wants this holy girl to promise to do something for you? Gu Beishen waved his fan and replied, let me think and then I will speak. I definitely won't put the holy girl in a difficult position. How about that? Yin Zi Xian also agreed, then I will just do as the young master says. She waved her hand, and a spirit ship appeared, floating in the air, please board the ship. The spirit ship flew slowly among the clouds. Gu Beishen sighed, this is already the stratosphere. If it weren't for the spiritual energy in my body having been enhanced, I would definitely have frozen to death by now. Nia Xiao Tian looked down and also spoke, the speed is too fast, we have already flown over 100 miles in no time. Suddenly, the spirit ship shook, causing both of them to stumble. Gu Beishan raised his hand, grabbed Nya Xiaotian's hand, and pulled her into his embrace. Nya Xiaotian went from surprise to blushing, saying, "Beishan Gij, you are hurting me." Gu Beishan thoughtfully said, "Be careful. If you fall off the spirit ship, even with spiritual energy to protect you, you would be seriously injured." Nya Xiaotian responded with an, and thanked him, "Thank you, Beishan Gij." Gu Beishan smiled gently and speculated, "Nya Lanfeng must be afraid of offending a young master from a mysterious force like me, so he sacrificed his precious daughter to please me." From his gaze, he let out a slight sigh, "I only want to obtain her Win's spiritual roots." He let her go and said, "Nya Xiaotian, in fact, I have little connection with you and the Fei Yun sect." He raised his hand and said, "As long as you fulfill your promise and call me husband, I will not harm your Dao heart." Hearing this, Nya Xiaotian's tears fell down her cheeks, saying, "Aren't you supposed to be my future husband?" She wiped her tears and replied, "I understand now. The young master does not like Xiaotian. Xiaotian was disrespectful to the young master. When I return to the Fei Yun sect, I will ask my father to annul the engagement myself." Gu Beishan was also surprised and confused, thinking, could it be that Nya Lanfeng didn't tell her that the engagement he mentioned before basically doesn't exist? I understand now. Nya Lanfeng is afraid her heart realm will be harmed, so she didn't bring it up with her. Gu Beishan placed his hand on her shoulder and comforted her, "Xiaotian, I was too harsh. I thought you were forced to please me by Nya Master, which is why I said those words." He smiled warmly and said, "Actually, I don't hate you at all." Nya Xiaotian also felt a bit wronged and replied, "Beishan Gij, actually, when I am with you today, that is my true self. What you saw yesterday was just me acting as the master's daughter, having to present myself a certain way in front of my fellow disciples." Li Ziling had just stepped out and, upon seeing this scene, clenched his fists and shouted, "You bastard, what are you doing? Let Xiaotian go right now." He added, "You jerk," and unleashed his power to strike, saying, "How dare you bully Xiaotian." Nya Xiaotian looked over and then also used her power to block the attack, causing both their forces to explode at the same time. Li Ziling, surprised, asked, "Xiaotian, what are you doing?" Nya Xiaotian did not answer him but asked, "Beishan Gij, are you okay?" Gu Beishan replied, "I'm fine, thank you, Xiaotian, for helping." Li Ziling, furious, asked, "Xiaotian, why are you protecting this jerk? He is just a young master relying on his elder." Li Ziling said indignantly, but Nya Xiaotian reminded him, "Li senior brother, don't be disrespectful. Beishan Gij is our guest elder of the Fei Yun sect." She blushed slightly and continued, "Moreover, she is my future Dao partner." Li Ziling was shocked, stammering, "Xiaotian, what are you talking about?" Nya Xiaotian stepped forward, saying, "Considering that Li's senior brother just exited today and you acted without knowing the situation, I won't let Beishan Gij pursue charges of disrespect against you." Li Ziling indignantly said, "Xiaotian, I just don't want you to be deceived by this young master, I don't want you to go against your conscience and get close to this fickle person." Nya Xiaotian replied indifferently, "My matters do not require Li's senior brother to worry. Also, the way you call me Xiaotian is too intimate, please refrain from calling me that in the future. Like the other senior brothers, just call me Nya junior sister." She waved her hand, and Gu Beishan nervously emphasized, "Don't let Beishan Gij misunderstand, junior sister thanks you in advance." Li Ziling was left stunned as he watched them being affectionate. He looked at them, then bowed his head and gritted his teeth, refusing to accept. "What Qin Nyo, venerable one, what engagement, all baseless nonsense." He looked at Gu Beishan and shouted, "Master and Xiaotian must have fallen under your evil demon's enchanting spell." Li Ziling unleashed her technique, revealing the divine tiger. She firmly stated, "Today, I, Li Ziling, will carry out justice on behalf of heaven and eliminate your wicked kind." Nya Xiaotian looked up at the divine tiger and asked, "Li Ziling, what are you planning to do?" She posed in a defensive stance and said, "This is a spaceship, do you want everyone to die? Gu Bei-shen was astonished, thinking, this guy actually has cultivation at the Golden Elixir realm major completion. He frowned, thinking, right now, I'm still not a match for him. Am I really going to let Li Ziling call me husband? Nya Xiaotian anxiously asked, Bei-shen Gij, what should we do now? Gu Bei-shen feigned calmness and reassured her, Xiaotian, there's no need to be afraid. I'll handle everything. Then, without hesitation, he ran off shouting, holy girl. This is bad. As he ran, he informed, someone is setting fire on your spaceship. Yin Zixian kept her eyes closed, pretending nothing was happening. Your personal matters are for you to solve. Don't bother me. No wonder she let Li Ziling come along and promised to let him go to Cloud Heaven Palace. So it turns out the first wife is also a jealous person. Li Ziling waved her hand, sending the tiger charging forward, shouting, demonic Gu Bei-shen, die. The tiger roared and lunged at him. Gu Bei-shen, in fear, thought, that's it, summoning a shark now is too late. The tiger opened its mouth and charged, but suddenly shrank down to a mini version right at Gu Bei-shen's feet. It was still fluffy and made a growling sound. Gu Bei-shen was taken aback, thinking, what's going on? Why has this tiger turned into a sickly cat? Nya Xiaotian ran over, calling, Bei-shen Gij. She asked worriedly, are you okay? Li Ziling looked at her hand, confused, my spiritual energy. He was perplexed, why has it become so weak? Yin Zixian then spoke up, explaining, we have entered the secret realm of the void. In the secret realm, everyone's cultivation will be suppressed. Gu Bei-shen looked at the still fluffy tiger beside him and thought, so that's how it is. It seems the first wife is not someone who would stand by and do nothing. He kicked the tiger, saying, get lost. Li Ziling sulked and said, consider yourself lucky. Once my cultivation is restored, I will definitely turn your beloved into dust. Gu Bei-shen raised both hands and teased, do you really need to go that far? It's just a grudge over a stolen wife. Li Ziling was so furious she felt like exploding, insisting, Gu Bei-shen, mark my words, I will get my revenge for today's grudge. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west, just you wait. Gu Bei-shen scratched his face, chuckling to himself, thinking, why does it feel like this guy is the one holding the main script? Yin Zixian stood up and said, the spirit ship is about to land, everyone hold on tight. The spirit ship gradually descended into the secret realm of Tianyun. Yin Zixian turned around and said, this place is a secret realm, and this holy girl doesn't know the specific situation inside. Your mission on this trip is to follow this holy girl to search for an item within the secret realm. As for other matters, adapt as needed. Li Ziling and Nya Xiaotian bowed and replied, understood. Gu Bei-shen nodded. Yin Zixian glared down, feeling annoyed, and thought, Li Ziling, what a useless one. She turned around, wondering to herself, what's wrong with me lately? Her mood was constantly disturbed by young master Gu Bei-shen, and she felt jealousy toward Xiaotian. She sighed and stepped into the secret realm. As the four of them walked, Nya Xiaotian casually said, Bei-shen Gij, this place is truly like a paradise. Gu Bei-shen also lamented, holy girl, this place is lush and clear, it doesn't feel unusual at all. Yin Zixian said, in this secret realm, the Tao pressure is very strong. Everyone's spiritual energy is suppressed at the early stage of foundation establishment realm. Li Ziling crossed her arms and teased, you all were originally in the foundation establishment realm, so it's normal that you can't feel anything. Gu Bei-shen glanced at her, thinking, if what the first wife Yin Zixian said is true, everyone entering the secret realm is suppressed at the foundation establishment realm. He clenched both hands, releasing spiritual energy, and thought, but my spiritual energy comes from the 100 Wives book. Currently, my cultivation is still at the early stage of Golden Elixir realm. He frowned in thought, but to continue breaking through, I need to quickly create an atmosphere for Xiaotian to call me husband. Nya Xiaotian seemed a bit apprehensive and said, Bei-shen Gij, the two of us are weak, let's not act alone anymore. Yin Zixian felt annoyed seeing her getting closer to Gu Bei-shen again. This Nya Xiaotian, she thought before stating, the four of us will form a horizontal formation, spreading out a distance of 10 miles, and search ahead. Li Ziling and I will be on the outer sides, while Gu Baishan and Nye Xiaotian will be in the middle. Hearing this, Nye Xiaotian and Gu Baishan were both surprised. He looked at Yin Zixian, feeling in his heart, this first wife is a bit hard to understand, she gets jealous over the slightest thing. Yin Zixian took out several floating tokens and distributed them to the three, instructing, if the token lights up, report to me immediately. She reminded them, just be careful while searching ahead. If you truly encounter an unsolvable danger, then decide what to do afterward. Gu Baishan asked, Holy girl, what exactly do you want us to find? Yin Zixian replied, I can't tell you that. She said seriously, but in the secret realm, as soon as you see anything unusual, report it to me immediately. Gu Baishan responded earnestly, understood, holy girl. He looked at the token and clicked his tongue, thinking, it seems it is not a precious item after all. If I had found this first, I would definitely keep it for myself. Li Ziling was also happily watching him, thinking, finally, you are acting on your own for once. He gritted his teeth and was determined, Gu Baishan, I will make you pay. Gu Baishan went in a different direction, boredly touching the tree trunk. Is this so-called secret realm just a dungeon? It doesn't seem that special. As he walked, he wisely said, the environment here isn't bad. If I had known this earlier, I would have brought Nyo old man here to graze. Gu Baishan clenched his hands and gloomily said, why am I still thinking about letting cattle roam like this? I am no longer that little boy herding cattle. This damn occupational hazard. There was a rustling sound in the bushes ahead. He looked over and asked, what is that noise? A rabbit jumped out of the bushes. Gu Baishan said, so it's just a rabbit. His eyes suddenly widened in shock. That rabbit is huge, but why is this rabbit so big? He happily thought, a rabbit this size would make urban dwellers cry with joy. Saliva dripped down in happiness right there. He grabbed the pot and pan and rushed in, turning it into a spicy rabbit dish. Just thinking about it made Gu Baishan drool. The huge rabbit stared at him with wide eyes, then began to drool, making him confused and think, why does this giant rabbit have such an expression? He was startled and realized, could it be planning to eat me? As he thought this, the large rabbit leaped forward, causing Gu Baishan to panic, thinking, I'm done for. The large rabbit missed its grab and landed on the ground. Gu Baishan dodged to the side, cautiously deducing, is this a carnivorous rabbit? Gu Baishan unleashed his spiritual energy and said, let's see who ends up eating whom. He braced himself, preparing to strike. The large rabbit also emitted power from its forehead and suddenly shot forward. Fortunately, Gu Baishan was relatively agile and managed to evade its attack. He looked at it fiercely and muttered, how annoying. He was terrified and wondered, this rabbit doesn't look any weaker than old man Nyo. Are the strongest creatures in this world just these beasts? At that moment, the large rabbit released a shockwave, forcing Gu Baishan to cover his head and exclaim, my head hurts. What is happening? In front of him, a girl suddenly appeared. Gu Baishan looked up and asked, who? Who is it? When he opened his eyes, he saw a girl with rabbit ears and elegant legs. In astonishment, he called out, Yin Zixian, the rabbit. The rabbit girl raised her finger and chuckled softly. Gu Baishan cunningly said, little white rabbit, with two ears standing up, loves to eat carrots and greens, hops around, truly adorable. He approached the rabbit girl, sighed and remarked, next time, sing a different version for the first wife, I bet it will make her so embarrassed that she'll dive right into the blanket. Just as he was lost in her beauty, the rabbit girl raised her hand and slapped him hard, causing him to spit water and twist his mouth. He touched his flushed cheek and asked, what is happening, only to find that it was Yin Zixian. She asked, what are you doing? Being dazed in the middle of a battle, Gu Baishan bared his teeth and cursed, annoying, then pointed at the white rabbit and scolded it, your grandfather, a mere rabbit trying to seduce me. This is too much. Yin Zixian waved her sword and coldly said, you still need me to take action personally. The rabbit used a mind-controlling trick again. She paused and said, what kind of strange feeling is this? She looked like she was gradually sinking into an illusion. Gu Beishen was surprised and asked, huh? Didn't you say you would kill the rabbit? Why are you looking at me? Yin Zi Xian looked at him, then blushed and called, Grand Gidge, it's you. Gu Beishen scratched his face, feeling awkward. What is this? Grand Gidge. The big rabbit became angry and immediately charged forward. Gu Beishen looked over and pushed Yin Zi Xian aside, shouting, be careful. He himself blocked the mouth of the big rabbit that was opening wide. Nia Xiaotian and Li Ziling ran over, shouting, Beishen Gidge, be careful. Li Ziling held her hand, preventing her. Xiaotian, don't go over there. That rabbit seems to have an enchanting technique. Nia Xiaotian coldly pushed his hand away. I told you already, don't call me Xiaotian anymore. Don't stop me, get out of the way. She ran over and said, Beishen Gidge, I'm here to help you. The big rabbit released its enchanting technique again. Nia Xiaotian called out again, Beishen Gidge, and fell under the enchantment. Gu Beishen looked at her and thought, oh no, she's been hit by the soul charm. Nia Xiaotian smiled softly and said, Beishen Gidge, you've been waiting for a long time. Then she moved closer to him and continued, Xiaotian is late. Gu Beishen was both shy and flustered, exclaiming, Xiaotian, please wake up. The evil energy of Li Ziling had darkened a corner. The flames of jealousy mixed with wickedness said, Gu Beishen, your death day has come. Nia Xiaotian called out, Beishen Gidge, and kept leaning against him. She looked up at him and said, from now on, Xiaotian will cultivate at Cloud Heaven Palace. Tonight the moon is bright and the wind is pleasant, why don't we get married right now? Gu Beishen hurriedly said, Xiaotian, please wake up. Don't suddenly take off your clothes like this in broad daylight. Li Ziling crossed her arms, smiling with delight, thinking, well, this works, let her see him die, and it will cut off all her feelings for him. She sneered, thinking, at most, he will come to save her soon. Gu Beishen struggled to shut the mouth of the big rabbit and thought, this time is tricky, my spiritual energy is almost depleted. He turned his head and called, Yin Zi Xian, hurry up and help. What are you still standing around for? Do you really want to see us be made prey for the rabbit? Yin Zi Xian was also enchanted and asked, Grand Gidge, what are you saying? Gu Beishen shouted again, I'm saying we should quickly deal with it while we can. But for Yin Zi Xian at that moment, she noticed him raising his hand and called, Zi Xian, come play with Gidge. She also raised her hand and called, Grand Gidge, do you want to play with Xian Xian? Now both girls were clinging to Gu Beishen, making him brace himself while thinking, she has been heavily affected by the enchantment. Yin Zi Xian happily asked, Grand Gidge, can we continue playing the bandit wife game? Last time Xian Xian was tied up and brought back by you, how do you plan to treat Xian Xian in the future? Li Ziling exclaimed in surprise, bandit wife. He felt a chill down his spine, thinking, even under the enchantment, the holy girl's mind is quite lively. Gu Beishen shouted, hey, Li Ziling, if you don't act now, we'll be in real trouble. Li Ziling pointed, snorted coldly, and nonchalantly said, monster. Having enchanted Xiaotian and Nia Master, now your fate is to be swallowed by illusion. It is true that you reap what you sow. Gu Beishen gritted his teeth in frustration and thought, this Li Ziling is really a blind lover. Now that things have come to this, we might as well use his own tricks against him. Nia Xiaotian said, Beishen Gidge, accept me, Xiaotian. Yin Zi Xian also called out, Grand Gidge, please don't spank Xian Xian anymore. Gu Beishen took advantage of the situation, pretending to be aggrieved, and asked, Xiaotian, why do you still call me Beishen Gidge? Nia Xiaotian replied, then, what should I call you? Gu Beishen awkwardly responded, Xiaotian and I have a proper engagement, of course, we should have a wedding ceremony first before fulfilling the duties of husband and wife. She sadly replied, I understand. Then, she immediately called out, husband. The 100 Wives book then displayed Nia Xiaotian's name. Gu Beishen was overjoyed, thinking, got it, the wind spiritual roots of Xiao Tian are of supreme quality. His eyes lit up, and he shouted, A, before unleashing tremendous power, sending all three of them flying. Li Ziling exclaimed in surprise, what happened? Just a moment ago he was exhausted. He was stunned and confused, where does this power come from? Gu Baishan looked at the power emanating from himself, unable to believe it. Is this really the power of the second wife? It truly is a monster. He looked at his hand, even more surprised. The water spiritual roots of the first wife combined with the wind spiritual roots of the second wife, yet it can form ice-type spiritual energy. He raised his hand to control the ice, wondering, what should I name this move? He unleashed the ice while rushing forward, reciting, Jade Road Wind and Flow Technique. The large rabbit was not gentle either and once again launched a direct attack against Gu Baishan's technique. Unexpectedly, his power was much more formidable, making it scream as it was swallowed, disappearing in an instant. The forest returned to its former tranquility. Gu Baishan held the now miniaturized large rabbit in his hand, looking extremely adorable. Li Ziling was astonished, thinking, Gu Baishan has won. But he was even more puzzled. What kind of move is Jade Road Wind and Flow Technique? He furrowed his brow, thinking, it sounds extremely low class but also makes people feel a bit strange. He stopped thinking and ran to Nya Xiao Tian, asking, are you okay? Nya Xiao Tian sat up and asked, is it already morning? Did Xiao Tian make her husband comfortable last night? She was startled. Ha! A voice asked, what's going on? Why did you fall asleep just now? Looking over at Yin Zixian, who was still drowsy, she called out, it hurts, Grand Gidge, you hit my butt again. All three of them looked at her with surprise. Suddenly, Gu Baishan grabbed Nya Xiao Tian's hand and shouted, we need to run. She asked in confusion, why do we have to run? Gu Baishan, in fear, said, if someone sees her in that embarrassing state, it will really be terrible. Li Ziling, still unaware of what was happening, looked after them and said, are you crazy? He went back inside and called out, holy girl, wake up quickly. The battle is over. Yin Zixian woke up in a rush, immediately stood up, and blushed while looking at Li Ziling. Without much ado, a loud slap was heard. Red marks appeared on his face as he lay on the ground. Nya Xiao Tian said, how did such a cute little rabbit become like this? Yin Zixian replied, what's so surprising about it? It's just a spirit rabbit. The three of them were still gazing at the large rabbit when Nya Xiao Tian suddenly remembered and asked, Baishan Gidge, are you hurt? Gu Baishan smiled and replied, I'm fine, it's just a rabbit, it can't hurt me. Nya Xiao Tian clenched her fists and irritably said, it's all this rabbit's fault, causing the large rabbit to sweat profusely, terrified of this fierce lioness. She continued to hit its head a few times, scolding, who told you not to eat grass obediently? Who told you to scare people? The large rabbit, looking pitiful from being hit, cried and immediately burrowed into Baishan's clothes. He blankly pointed and asked, how about you give me this rabbit? Nya Xiao Tian crossed her arms and pouted. This rabbit almost harmed Baishan Gidge, I don't want it. Yin Zixian suggested, Gu young master, how about you give me this rabbit? Nya Xiao Tian was not willing, now arguing with Yin Zixian. Holy girl lord, just now Baishan Gidge was attacked, but you were under a spell and couldn't help at all. She frowned and asked, now that the danger is unblocked, and yet you still ask for the loot, isn't that unreasonable? Yin Zixian reprimanded sternly, the holy girl is talking to the guest elder. What are you trying to butt in for, Junior? Nya Xiao Tian, frustrated, turned her head and indignantly thought about being oppressed by her status. She wasn't just anyone, having raised her hand to reclaim the rabbit from earlier. Baishan Gidge has already told me, so now this rabbit is mine. Baishan, standing in the middle, could only sigh inwardly. She didn't even want it when I offered it to her earlier. This woman really loves to compete. His expression was downcast as if deep in thought, yet internally he was delighted, thinking, haha, I used to find scenes of emperors and their concubines fighting for favor in period dramas boring, but now it's actually quite interesting. I wonder when I'll have my own 3,000 beautiful concubines. Yin Zixian retaliated, not backing down. If you've already given it to someone else, then I, the holy girl, don't want it anymore. She turned around, speaking condescendingly. It's just a rabbit, after leaving the secret realm, it's just an ordinary rabbit. Mediocre items only suit mediocre people. Nye Xiao Tian, furious, immediately changed her attitude. She huffed coldly, pointing at Yin Zixien and said, I don't want it either, Beishan Gij, you can give it to her. Gu Beishan held the big rabbit, looking confused and perplexed, wondering, is this really the Tu Le Chuang? He looked at them, bewildered. Just now they were fighting over it, and now neither of them wants it. To be fair, he suggested, how about this? Someone needs to take care of it, so let's place it between the two of you. Whichever way it runs, that person will be responsible for raising it. Both girls turned to look. Yin Zixien rolled her eyes and said with annoyance, I don't want it. Following that, Nye Xiao Tian crossed her arms and said, Xiao Tian doesn't want it either. But Gu Beishan still set the big rabbit down, telling it, you choose your own fate. The big rabbit kept turning its head, unsure of which way to go. Yin Zixien secretly glanced at it, wrinkling her face and wondering, it's just an ordinary rabbit, why am I paying so much attention to it? Nye Xiao Tian, on the other hand, eagerly called out, come here, little rabbit, over here. Yin Zixien, feeling anxious, used her water ability to make the grass grow faster beneath her feet, catching the big rabbit's attention. It immediately jumped over to her, shocking Gu Beishan, who thought, she is secretly using the power of water spiritual roots to make the grass around her grow better. Nye Xiao Tian also played a trick, forming a seal and using powerful wind techniques to pull it towards her, causing Gu Beishan to stumble and exclaim, ouch. His face was blank as he thought, so she is also using the power of wind spiritual roots. The large rabbit was about to eat the grass when it was pulled towards Nye Xiao Tian by her wind technique. It was angry and tried to hold on tight, but was still dragged to her. Just as she was gloating and laughing, the rabbit suddenly fell into Li Ziling's hands. Yin Zixien and Nye Xiao Tian both looked over, then all three tilted their heads and asked, Li Ziling, when did he wake up? Li Ziling held the large rabbit out and habitually called, Xiao Tian. Then he said, no, Nye junior sister, do you want this rabbit? Nye Xiao Tian turned around and whimsically said, I don't want it, it's just an ordinary rabbit, whoever wants it can take it. Li Ziling stared at the large rabbit in surprise and said, what? So Nye junior sister doesn't want it? He then turned to ask the holy girl if she wanted to take the rabbit. Yin Zixien did not refuse, raised her hand to take it immediately, and kindly said, this holy girl does not want the rabbit, but it has lost its spiritual energy. She looked down at him with a compassionate expression and said, the holy girl can't bear to see this being suffer here. She raised her voice and proclaimed, unlike some people. Nye Xiao Tian gritted her teeth, angry and venting her frustration at Li Ziling, you bastard. I really want to skin you alive. Li Ziling was confused, asking her, did anyone do anything? Nye junior sister said she didn't care, right? Gu Beishan watched Nye Xiao Tian hitting Li Ziling and admired her, saying, truly a man as tough as steel, indeed a role model for us to learn from. Yin Zixien, feeling happy, looked at the big rabbit and said, we are fated, let the holy girl name you. She looked at the big rabbit in her arms, smiled gently, and said, from now on, your name will be Xiao Bei. Gu Beishan looked at her, blushed, and kept sweating, thinking, my name is Gu Beishan, and it's called the rabbit Xiao Bei. Right now it's hiding in his wife's arms, while I can only stand by and watch enviously. He could only helplessly exhale, you're worse than a dog, no, worse than a rabbit. Outside the forest, a giant rat appeared, emanating a strange evil power. It was surrounded by 4 people, growling incessantly. Nye Xiao Tian frowned and said, these spirit beasts are getting stronger and stronger. It seems we have entered deeper into the secret realm. Suddenly, the giant rat lunged at Li Ziling. He had already drawn his sword, ready for the attack, and said, humph, come at me. He struck the rat on the head, but unexpectedly, it unleashed a powerful force that made Li Ziling grit his teeth and say, this beast has such immense strength. Gu Beishan looked at them and clucked a few times, it's just like in a game. The ugliest enemy has the highest hate points. He clenched his fist, channeling his spiritual energy, and said, I will see if the ice-type spiritual energy of dual spiritual roots has any miraculous effects. The ice power on Gu Beishan's hand gradually took form. He also marveled, indeed, the power of ice can materialize the things I imagine. The ice power transformed into a sword, which surprised him even more, prompting him to exclaim, isn't this like 3D printing? Yin Xian looked at the sword Gu Beishan was holding and wondered, is that the ice-cold sword? Clearly, Gu Beishan also has fire spiritual roots like me, so why can he control ice system spiritual energy? Li Ziling raised his sword, wanting to fight the large rat, shouting, everyone stay back. He released spiritual energy from the sword and said with arrogance, these tiny demon beasts, let Li Ziling take care of them. He jumped up, focused his energy, and delivered a powerful slash towards the large rat, declaring, taste this flaming sword strike that I created myself. The flame exploded with mighty force, rushing towards the large rat. It squinted, unable to bear it, and was burned by the flames, squeaking in distress. Yin Xian looked at him, thinking, Li Ziling is truly a talent worth cultivating. She glanced at Gu Beishan and thought, but he is still a bit inferior compared to Gu Beishan. Li Ziling looked at the still burning rat carcass, breathing heavily. The large rat squeaked and then shrank down to something the size of Xiao Bei at the beginning. Li Ziling's face was flushed, sweat pouring down, as he said, heaven's logic is clear, evil cannot overcome the righteous. Yin Xian reminded Li Ziling, don't be too reckless. Right now your strength is only at the foundation establishment stage, so you should try to conserve your spiritual energy. Gu Beishan held the cold sword in this direction, only able to sigh. Does this little guy want to stand out so much? I haven't even had the chance to test the new divine weapon yet. Li Ziling picked up the large rat and cheerfully handed it to Nya Xiaotian. Xiaotian junior sister, I just gave a rabbit to the holy girl, so consider this rat as compensation for you. In contrast to his sincerity, Nya Xiaotian's hand trembled with anger. Then, she ruthlessly threw the rat right at Li Ziling's face and yelled, get lost, take your rat and go far away. Gu Beishan looked surprised, only able to express his amazement. This guy really is single because of his lack of skill. Watching Li Ziling awkwardly pick up the rat, he couldn't help but laugh, thinking, he just got beat by Yin Xian, and now he's being attacked by Nya Xiaotian. Does he have some kind of special hobby? At that moment, the token on Gu Beishan's body lit up. He looked down at his chest and said, what is this? He picked it up and exclaimed, this is the token the holy girl gave. This token is shining, which means, Yin Xian explained, the token shining means we have approached the destination. She commanded, let's go, it should be up ahead. A while later, Yin Xian took the lead and said, this is the place. She looked down and stated, the thing that Cloud Heaven Palace wants to find is right below this. Gu Beishan also looked down and asked, is it that deep? Do we have to jump down? Yin Xian asked expressionlessly, if not, then what? Do you want this holy girl to carry you down? Gu Beishan blushed, scratched his cheek, and said, that idea sounds good, so this young master will follow orders then. Suddenly, Yin Xian kicked him down first. Nya Xiaotian exclaimed in panic, Beishan Gij. As Gu Beishan fell, he yelled, ouch, someone is trying to murder me. His eyes widened as he looked down at a skull with its mouth open, asking, what is this thing? He planned to gather his internal energy and land with a sharp gaze, panting as he looked around nervously, saying, this place feels completely different from the other areas in the secret realm, giving me an ominous premonition. Following that, the three of them, Yin Xian and Nya Xiaotian, rushed over to ask, Beishan Gij, are you hurt? Gu Beishan replied, I'm fine. He also asked, when you all arrived, did you see a human face? Yin Xian looked around, puzzled, it's just fog everywhere, where would there be any face? What exactly did you see? Gu Beishan recounted, the face was gaunt, resembling a unicorn, looking as if it wanted to devour me whole. His voice lowered, saying, if I have to say it plainly. He then made a grimace and continued, then that is indeed a demonic face, isn't it? This frightened Li Ziling, who was easily scared and quickly hid behind Yin Xian, saying, don't talk nonsense, the world is clear. He strained his neck, trying to argue back, is there really such a thing as ghosts in this world? Gu Baishan looked at him huddled on the ground and thought, so this guy is afraid of ghosts. He must have done many guilty things to his conscience. He frowned and wondered, they can't see that face. Could it be that I mistook it? At that moment, a tinkling laugh echoed everywhere, making Li Ziling even more frightened than before, asking, Gu Baishan, what are you laughing at? Gu Baishan countered, Li senior brother, do you hear something? But I don't hear anything at all. Just then, the chilling laughter rang out again, causing Li Ziling's legs to give way, sitting down and stammering, you. Gu Baishan, it must be you pretending to be a ghost. His eyes were filled with tears as he helplessly asked, such loud laughter, can't anyone hear it? All three of them had heard it, yet they were still on guard. Yin Zixian became serious and said, Gu Baishan, don't scare him anymore at a time like this. Nya Xiaotian raised his sword and said, this sound can't be pinpointed, it seems to come from all directions. Li Ziling stood up, also holding her sword, snorting in disdain and said, I had already suspected that the monster in the deep was causing trouble. His face darkened, determined, today Li Ziling will definitely show the monster the righteous light of my way. Gu Baishan, however, thought differently from what they were thinking, just hearing this sound was enough for him to know it was definitely a proud girl. He straightened his face and felt, it seems like my 100 Wives book is about to have some disturbances again. All four of them heightened their vigilance from all sides. Li Ziling pointed her sword forward, irritably saying, this monster still dares to pretend to be a god or a ghost. As soon as he finished speaking, he jumped forward, saying, let me go eliminate it. Yin Zixian spoke up again, calling, stop. She reminded Li Ziling, you can't see the situation around you, acting so recklessly is no different from handing over your life. She turned to Nya Xiaotian and commanded, summon the whirlwind to disperse the thick fog around here. Nya Xiaotian replied, understood, I will do it immediately. She clasped her hands, gathering spells. Her eyes widened suddenly as she said, no. She looked at her hands, surprised, yet my spiritual energy cannot be used. Li Ziling stood in front of her and said, let me, your flames can also disperse the fog. He raised his sword and soon realized that the power from his sword had also significantly diminished. That's not right, I can't mobilize my spiritual energy either. He raised his hand with dissipating spiritual energy and asked, what's going on? Yin Zixian was also restricted in spiritual energy. She felt a bit hesitant and thought, I didn't expect laughter could seal spiritual energy. This enemy is not simple. Gu Baishan also tried to gather his strength and discovered, it seems my spiritual energy is not affected at all. He looked at his hand and wondered, is it because my spiritual energy comes from the 100 Wives book? Yin Zixian snorted coldly and took out a flute. She frowned and said, such a despicable trick. She began to play the flute, thinking, this demonic object really underestimates my cloud heaven palace. Yin Zixian focused on playing a sound that echoed throughout the area. Gu Baishan heard the sound and began to hum a few lines of poetry. On a bright moonlit night, on 24 bridges, the beautiful girl here teaches how to play the flute. He was mesmerized, staring at her in surprise, so the holy girl has the ability to play the flute. It seems that this first wife truly lives up to her reputation. The sword in Li Ziling's hand also regained its power at this moment. He raised the sword forward and praised, the holy girl lord is indeed powerful, my spiritual energy has recovered. In the mist, a silhouette of a woman appeared, saying, your flute-playing skill is so high, why don't you teach me? The girl turned to look at them, seemingly floating above the ground, and asked, I wonder where your sister learned her flute-playing skill. Li Ziling shouted, demon. It really is you pretending to be a god. Gu Baishan looked over at the girl and read and couldn't help but sigh, thinking, I thought my first wife was the best in the world, but I didn't expect there to be someone even more formidable than her. He wondered to himself, I wonder whose subordinate she is. He looked at the horn on the girl's head and was surprised. What's with the horns on the head? Cosplay magic clan. Yin Zixian snorted coldly, raised her sword and said, calling me sister. She frowned, mocking the enchanting demon Hong Tu, an old woman of several hundred years whose thick skin was proportional to her age. The enchanting demon retorted with sharp words, "No wonder you call yourself the holy girl of Cloud Heaven Palace, truly a case where a dog's mouth can't produce ivory." She then turned to Gu Bei Shen and sweetly praised, "Unlike this young master. Where did this beauty learn to play the flute? The poetic talent of this little gidge is truly indescribable." Gu Bei Shen gracefully responded, "This sister has overpraised me, I merely spoke by chance." While still blinking in astonishment, he thought, "Enchanting demon? Wasn't she designed to be my third wife?" The enchanting demon flirted, saying, "Little gidge is indeed humble. This heavenly maiden also has some talent. Would little gidge like to try experiencing it a bit?" Hearing these words, Gu Bei Shen glanced at his two wives, thinking to himself, "This demoness is too blatant in her provocation." He sweated and cautiously said, "This is the person who wants to eat me, I still have to report back to my harem." Gu Bei Shen smiled, restrained himself, and said, "I won't disturb Miss Hong too, I'm someone who enjoys being alone and finding joy in solitude." The enchanting demon exclaimed, looking at Nya Xiao Tian, and said, "Little brother is not just finding joy by himself, I'm afraid little gidge already has someone in his heart, right?" She raised her hand and giggled, "No more forcing it, I understand your inconvenient situation, so we can chat later." Yin Zi Xian pointed to the sword and asked enchanting demon Hong Tu why she came to this place. The enchanting demon replied, "Sister, why are you asking me?" She had no qualms in saying, "If you came here for some reason, then of course, I came here for the same reason." Gu Bei Shen crossed his arms, thinking, "Are they also here to look for treasures?" He grew serious and confirmed, "It seems this place really has a treasure." Yin Zi Xian frowned and said, "Coming here to take something is fine, but I'm afraid you can't pay the corresponding price." She grimaced and emphasized, "So if you dare to sneak into the Wu Ji Empire, just stay here." The enchanting demon chuckled softly and said, "What a coincidence, sister, I also don't want anyone to know I've been here." She took the whip and casually replied, "So I have no intention of letting you go anywhere." She struck the whip forcefully on the ground. A few monstrous beings stepped out, laughing sinisterly. Li Ziling raised her sword and snorted, just as they had 4 monstrous beings as well. She immediately said, "The tallest one is mine." Gu Bei Shen looked at him and sighed, "This one is indeed a coward." To avoid fighting the boss, he actively takes on a small minion. Yin Zi Xian resolutely stated, "We have a lifelong feud with the magic clan, if we meet today, it will surely be a life and death battle. I have fought against the enchanting demon magic clan before, but our strengths were merely equal." She ordered, "You 3, each handle one of her minions. If you win, hurry to assist me." The enchanting demon praised, "Sister, your arrangement is very reasonable. You 3, what are you hesitating for? Quickly go and tear them apart." Gu Bei Shen worried about Nya Xiao Tian and asked, "One-on-one, there won't be any problems, right?" Nya Xiao Tian, happy to receive his concern, replied, "Don't worry, Bei Shen gidge." She turned to say, "Younger sister can do it." The group of monsters laughed, shouting, "Tear them apart." Unexpectedly, the guy next to me was hit directly in the face by Gu Bei Shen's spiritual energy and fell backward. They became even angrier, cursing, "These brats don't respect martial ethics at all, yet they dare to play sneak attacks." Gu Bei Shen chuckled lightly, adding more spiritual energy in his hand, rebutting, "Is this a sneak attack? I only felt that your faces were a bit dehydrated, so I was just helping you replenish some water." The magic clan guy pushed himself up, gritting his teeth, and said, "Little guy." He ground his teeth and said, "Originally, I intended to let you live." He clenched his fist and shouted, "So you can witness me teach that young lady the method of duel cultivating." Upon hearing this, Gu Bei Shen was slightly taken aback, then laughed disdainfully, lamenting, "So it turns out the magic clan has its own bull-headed guys." The magic clan guy, confused, asked, "What is a bull-headed guy?" Gu Bei Shen chuckled and unleashed a water blast, causing the magic clan guy to fall down. He turned and ran, replying, "The bull-headed guy must die." The magic clan guy, continuously tormented by Gu Bei Shen's tricks, went mad, cursing, "Damn it, you're sneaking up on me again. He charged angrily, declaring he would show how he would skin them. Yin Zixian, on this side, was also raising his sword, saying, Hong Tu, today I will end this here. The enchanting demon feigned innocence and asked Holy Girl why she was in such a hurry. She raised her hand to command the demonic beings, saying, why not let the juniors start first? Yin Zixian, irritated, swung his sword, rushing in, telling them to cut the nonsense. The enchanting demon rapped Yin Zixian's sword with her whip, gracefully asking, Sister, is it that you can't wait and want to try my junior sister's whip, right? Li Ziling over here also shouted, Demon, die. He rushed towards the magic clan member who was looking on with interest, saying, this guy suits my taste, let me have a word with you. A strike from Li Ziling was dodged by the magic clan member. Li Ziling struck again, but was still blocked by a mace. The magic clan member swung his mace, forcing Li Ziling to retreat. Not backing down, he used his strength to swing his sword again, stating, fight with me and I will show you what it means for evil to not triumph over good. The magic clan member sneered, huffed coldly, and said, you don't know your own limits. On Nia Xiaotian's side, the magic clan member mocked and asked, young lady, are you scared of fighting alone? Nia Xiaotian calmly responded, what is there to be afraid of from a little demon soldier? The magic clan member, with a serious look, jumped up, wanting to swing down his mace, saying, let me teach you what fear is. Nia Xiaotian was no stranger to fighting, she lightly stepped on the ground and leaped up, avoiding the mace he swung down. The magic clan member turned and said angrily, you little girl. He spun around and teasingly added, looking at your smooth skin, you are very suitable for dual cultivation. After I defeat you, I'll let a cauldron as good as you die in comfort. Nia Xiaotian paused for a moment, then replied, it seems I still don't want to show this side of myself in front of Bei Shengij. The situation not going as she wished made Nia Xiaotian take a breath, and she summoned the wind blade again, saying, in the sect, everyone I face is a senior brother or junior brother fellow disciple. From now on, always by Bei Shengij's side, I can finally take action without holding back. As for the people of the magic clan, I truly have to thank you. Nia Xiaotian tightly held the wind blade, waved it back, and continued. That day, I never expected Bei Shengij to be so strong. As a result, due to a little carelessness, I was defeated immediately. But at that time, I only used 3 parts of my strength. Her expression turned fierce as she said, now that I am facing your magic clan, of course, I won't hold back anymore. The magic clan member remained relaxed and said, little girl, not hiding anymore, starting to scare people, huh? You really did scare me to death. Then his eyes turned red, and he smiled wickedly, preparing to see what Nia Xiaotian would do next. As a result, she swiftly unleashed a wind blade chi, stopping right behind him. The magic clan member glanced at his arm which had been cut, gritting his teeth as he asked, is that all the power you have? Unexpectedly, just as he finished his sentence, several fatal wounds appeared on his body. The magic clan member collapsed and asked, who are you? She frowned and introduced herself, I am Nia Xiaotian. She immediately severed his head and said, when you get to the king of hell, remember to tell him my name. His body slumped down, ending the battle. On Li Ziling's side, he asked the magic clan member, this place is a decent burial ground, what do you think? The magic clan member laughed and replied, our magic clan only cares about eating, not burying. Li Ziling was a bit pensive, thinking, Gu Bei Shen, relying on the background and power of the master, has bullied Xiaotian to the point of losing his mind. He furrowed his brows and thought, if I cannot seize this opportunity to enter the Cloud Heaven Palace, then I will forever lose the chance to reclaim Xiaotian. He looked down at the gourd in his hand, calculating, if I can quickly resolve this crisis and help the holy girl obtain what she needs, it would surely be considered a great achievement. Moreover, if I can kill the enchanting demon here, then after entering the Cloud Heaven Palace, I will definitely be favored and nurtured. Li Ziling poured out the pill and took it, resolutely saying, opportunities must not be missed, time cannot turn back. The magic clan member saw this and laughed loudly, mocking, do you still have to rely on pills? No wonder that girl refuses to follow you. Li Ziling absorbed the pill, and in a moment, his spiritual energy erupted, and he sensed that this was the soul-devouring pill. Feeling delighted, it can enhance my combat power within an hour, and moreover, I will not be affected by any environmental suppression. The magic clan was shaken and said, "Impossible, how could you use the strength of the golden elixir realm in this secret realm?" His expression seemed fearful, and he continued, "Furthermore, you are crazily absorbing demon energy in this secret realm." Li Ziling controlled her power and urgently said, "Although the medicinal effect is strong, I will still lose all reason, leaving only a little emotion, a little thought to control my body." He exerted force and flew towards the magic clan member, saying, "Then let it be." The magic clan member turned to flee, saying, "This is not good, I must retreat to avoid his attack." Li Ziling's face was grim as she asked, "Want to run?" Then she waved her sword, controlling the fire to surround the magic clan member. Li Ziling became increasingly frenzied, saying, "Kill all the members of the magic clan." His eyes lit up, repeatedly shouting, "Kill, kill, kill." The magic clan member screamed in pain as the fire burned him. He raised his hand towards Li Ziling, unable to hide his astonishment. "I never expected a human clan cultivator like you could so easily absorb demon energy, and you have nearly formed the initial shape of a demon race. You can truly be considered a rare genius among demon cultivators." He sneered, using his last bit of demon energy to manifest. Looking at Li Ziling, he thought, "I will help you, even if I have to die, I will make you poisoned, becoming a child of the magic clan in the future." His eyes widened as he said, "It's not a loss." Then he forcefully pushed that demon energy into Li Ziling's forehead. The magic clan guy said, "The magic clan will win." Then he was burned to ashes. Gu Baishan rose into the air, causing the magic clan guy to go crazy, grabbing his mace and chasing after him, shouting, "Stop." Gu Baishan deliberately provoked him by running from side to side. The chubby magic clan guy kept chasing him, yelling, "Don't run." He gritted his teeth and growled, "You brat, are you going to fight or not?" Gu Baishan, unfazed, replied, "Of course I'm going to fight." After finishing his sentence, he ran away again. As it was someone else's words, the chubby magic clan guy panted while chasing, shouting, "What are you running for? Then you fight me fairly." He struck the ground with his mace, causing sparks to fly. Gu Baishan jumped into the air and said, "If you catch up to me, then of course I'll fight you." The chubby magic clan guy stared blankly at those words, then resolutely turned around and said, "If you don't want to fight, then just leave." But he had only taken a few steps when he was hit on the head by a hydraulic strike. Gu Baishan arrogantly asked, "So, what's going on? Aren't you going to fight anymore?" The fat magic clan member angrily turned his head and said, "What a jerk." Gu Baishan's expression darkened, and he said, "Still the same question, if you can drive me away, then I will gladly fight you." He raised his hand and asked, "What kind of life and death contest do you want?" The fat magic clan member widened his eyes and resolutely replied, "Fine, I will chase you down." He charged at Gu Baishan with all his might, shouting, "Then I'll eat you too." Before he could catch him, Gu Baishan jumped up, dodging a strike from the fat magic clan member. Gu Baishan then teased, "Good boy, you listen very well." Then he gathered energy in his hand and struck hard at the fat magic clan member's face. He seemed to lose his mind, screaming in a frenzy, "Are you ever going to stop?" From the deep abyss, a stream of spiritual energy mixed with intense demon energy surged forth. The enchanting demon struck with a whip, releasing sinister demon energy aimed at taking a life. Yin Zi Xian also unleashed a powerful sword chi, and they exchanged blows back and forth. Both unleashed their formidable attacks simultaneously, igniting flashes of fire. The enchanting demon frowned and concentrated his strength to strike out. When that move caused an explosion, Yin Zi Xian had to retreat before the pressure. She angrily cursed, "Damn it." The enchanting demon landed and praised, "After the battle at the Empire Wuji border, you've made incredible progress, sister." Yin Zi Xian snorted coldly and replied, "Stop talking nonsense." The enchanting demon gently proposed, "Sister, how about we each get what we need? Continuing to fight may yield no results, can't we just stop here?" Yin Xian silently reconsidered the enchanting demon's suggestion. Neither of us can do anything to the other. Continuing to fight will only result in both sides being harmed. She frowned, and before she could respond, Gu Beishan ran over from the other side, calling out, "Holy girl, don't fight, that's our person." Yin Xian turned to look at him, surprised, thinking, Gu Beishan has finished off that magic clan soldier so quickly. She unconsciously smiled slyly, murmuring, "Hong Tuesday." Then she turned back, raised her sword, and confidently said, "It seems the balance of the battlefield has been broken, you have no more chances." Gu Beishan ran over while raising his hand, shouting, "Holy girl, raise your hand." Yin Xian followed suit and raised her hand, asking, "What's going on?" Gu Beishan gave her a high five and then dashed past, laughing, "Switch opponents." Yin Xian was still surprised and asked, "What are you doing? Did you defeat the soldier from the magic clan?" Gu Beishan was out of breath, appearing terrified, and said, "The chubby soldier from the magic clan kept chasing me, I suspect he has a thing for men." He looked at Yin Xian and suggested, "I barely escaped from him. Shall we switch opponents?" Yin Xian considered this and responded, "Gu Beishan, what do you mean by having a thing for men? We cannot underestimate Hong Tu's strength. Are you sure you want to switch opponents?" The enchanting demon, amused by the exchange, chuckled softly. She cast a teasing glance at Yin Xian and said, "Sister, it seems like your people have chased you here. Is that handsome young man your lover, coming here to seek your help?" The enchanting demon spoke with a mocking tone, but was suddenly struck by Gu Beishan's hydraulic attack, exclaiming. Gu Beishan raised his hand to remind, "Miss Hong Tu, don't be so careless. Currently, your opponent is me." Contrary to the anger from being ambushed, the enchanting demon became increasingly interested in Gu Beishan and said, "This kid is truly a delightful child." She asked Yin Xian, "I'm more than willing to spar with you for 300 rounds, but I wonder if the holy girl would be willing to make some sacrifices." Yin Xian glanced at Gu Beishan, thinking, if he can fight against Hong Tu, he will surely be able to easily deal with that magic clan soldier. However, she found it puzzling and thought, but why has he been chased all the way here? Gu Beishan executed his water technique and asked, "Are you afraid, Miss Hong Tu? Even if you manage to escape, I will pursue you to the ends of the earth." He wore a playful smile and asked, "Well?" The enchanting demon interestingly asked, "Someone like you?" She flew up and gathered demon energy. "Oh my, the cultivation of this young master is so frightening that I would surely lose if we fought." In the blink of an eye, the enchanting demon had soared high and said, "Forgive me for taking my leave now." Yin Xian watched her, unable to understand what was happening. Hong Tu's strength is definitely above the golden elixir realm, she thought seriously. Although this place restricts cultivation, it's still not easy to deal with. How could she be scared and run away from Gu Beishan at the foundation establishment stage? Looking over, Gu Beishan had already stepped away, saying, "The magic clan soldier with the odd preference for men is coming soon. Holy girl, please stay and help me." As soon as he finished speaking, the chubby magic clan member rushed over with a mace, furious and shouting, "You dog, I've finally found you." He shouted, determined to strip you naked and cook you to eat. He looked at Yin Xian and asked, "Why are you here? Where did that little dog go?" Yin Xian coldly replied, "Either way, you all have to die. It doesn't matter who kills you." She frowned, recalling the earlier statement from the chubby magic clan member about stripping Gu Beishan. "It seems I understand what it means to have an unusual preference for men now." The chubby magic clan member raised his mace and recklessly charged forward, saying, "A woman dares to try to kill me." Yin Xian drew her sword, using spiritual energy to surround herself, concentrating the energy into her sword before thrusting it forward, still thinking, as expected, he really wants to find men. The fat magic clan member swung down with a mace, but Yin Xian blocked it with her sword and jumped high. She felt a little panicked, looking at her sword, thinking, "I'm done for, I used too much spiritual energy fighting Hong Tu just now." By the time the fat magic clan member seized the opportunity to strike down, Ling suddenly appeared from behind, his body radiating a powerful aura, and struck sharply at the back of the magic clan member with his sword. Ling, in a state of frenzy, shouted, "Wipe out the Magic Clan." Yin Xian watched as the fat Magic Clan member fell, realizing the power fluctuation of the Golden Elixir realm. Li Ziling continued to unleash his strength, fiercely shouting, "Wipe out the Magic Clan." He raised his sword forward, repeatedly insisting on exterminating the Magic Clan. On the side of Gu Bei-shen, he was chasing the enchanting demon, sweetly calling, "Sister, sister." His laughter emanated a lecherous scent as he said, "Don't run anymore, this young master has caught up with you." The enchanting demon, flying above, flirted back, calling, "Young master, you caught up with me, I will give you anything." She spoke and then exerted force to fly away, saying, "Even if you want to extract bones and suck marrow to eat me today, it wouldn't be a problem." Gu Bei-shen, upon hearing this, felt invigorated and quickly stepped forward to stand before the enchanting demon. At the same time, he teased, "Sister really knows how to joke, I see your demoness Magic Clan is indeed eager to devour me." The enchanting demon praised Gu Bei-shen a little, "No wonder you dare to challenge me, little guy, you truly have quite some talent. I really can't help but want to bring you under my banner, to become one who is beneath my skirt." She blushed slightly and asked, "Little guy, what do you think?" Gu Bei-shen intentionally responded to the enchanting demon's invitation, dying under the peony, even as a ghost one can be extravagant. He chuckled softly and proposed, "If the Hong-Tu heavenly maiden truly has this intention, then right here in this secret realm, you and I will go together to Yushan, this young master would willingly oblige." The enchanting demon took out her whip, laughing heartily, and asked with delight, "Young master deliberately changes me to a rival." She tilted her head and said, "Do you want me to pretend to flee to avoid others, just to die more comfortably?" Gu Bei-shen also took out the immortal binding rope and defended himself, "I just want to be alone with my sister, I only want to talk about beautiful things." He smirked in a sulky tone and asked, "But does sister want my life?" The enchanting demon whipped the ground and sighed, "It turns out the young master has even prepared a rope. Did you want to come for some fun because you saw my whip?" She bluntly asked, "The holy girl of the heavenly palace claims to be righteous, but I fear she cannot satisfy the young master's interests, right?" Gu Bei-shen did not refute but said something that seemed to acknowledge it, "Sister indeed understands deeply. It seems we need not go to Yushan Mountain together." The enchanting demon chuckled softly and said, "Is the young master regretting it? I can be gentle too." Gu Bei-shen responded with his sword, "This is the perfect place to enjoy the joy of water and fish." The enchanting demon was astonished and said, "Ice-cold sword, and yet you possess wind-water dual spiritual roots. Who exactly are you?" Gu Bei-shen smirked, raised his sword, and said, "Since sister is asking so much, why not experience it for yourself?" Having said that, he charged at the enchanting demon. She panicked and thought, "This is not good." She quickly cracked the whip, summoning the serpent spirit. Gu Bei-shen suddenly shouted, forcefully striking the serpent spirit as well as the whip of the enchanting demon into many pieces, causing her to furiously grit out the word, "You." She stepped back and asked, "Who on earth are you?" Gu Bei-shen scoffed, picking up the enchanting demon's whip and said, "This whip looks like quite a nice toy. Wait until my little brother handles you." He looked at the whip and asked her again, "What do you think my little brother will use it for to serve you, sister?" The enchanting demon was no longer flirtatious but cautious, thinking to herself, "I didn't expect this young man to be able to use such advanced techniques in the secret realm." She lowered her head, calculating that if she couldn't quickly escape the secret realm, she would definitely be captured by this young man of special status. If I am caught by Cloud Heaven Palace, then I surely won't survive, and I won't even have a decent death. After thinking that, she had lowered herself to kneel before Gu Bei-shen, pleading, "Young master, I was blind and inadvertently offended you." The enchanting demon, with an innocent look, assured, "If I had known a person like you was coming here, even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't dare to ruin your good work." She chuckled softly, then weakly continued, "At present, seeing the strength that the young master has displayed, I can only feel great admiration in my heart." She looked down at her body as if to imply, saying, "I am willing to follow in the footsteps of the young master." Looking up, Gu Bei-shen stated directly, "Even if I am just a maid, warming the bed for the young master every night, I would be willing." Gu Bei-shen looked at her, leisurely complimenting, "You truly know how to advance and retreat at the right moment, enchanting demon, becoming a servant." He blushed slightly, as if considering something new, then responded, "That sounds quite impressive." He did not object but accepted enchanting demon immediately, and then said, "This young master is indeed in need of a clever maid. Young lady, why don't you tell me, to warm the bed for this young master, what skills do you possess?" Enchanting demon raised her hand and calmly replied, "I will be a maid and warm the young master's bed, naturally I will obey the young master's commands." She raised her hand intentionally, "If not, then right here, I will come before the young master and massage your feet first." Gu Bei-shen frowned slightly, lamenting in his heart, as expected, she is the enchanting demon. Even in a time like this, it silently affects us, making it hard for people to know how to avoid it. But if we act hastily, this servant girl might fight desperately to the end. Gu Bei-shen raised the ice-cold sword, calmly stating, "I have to say, you have successfully captured my interest." He sheathed the sword and said, "If there's no one around, this young master wouldn't mind trying out a few of your exquisite moves." He emphasized seriously, "But I must make it clear first." He chuckled and continued, "If your performance doesn't meet this young master's standards, I will still capture you." Gu Bei-shen cryptically asked, "As for what you will experience afterward, I trust one don't need to elaborate, right?" The enchanting demon expressed her joy and gratitude. "This servant thanks the young master for this opportunity, and I will definitely strive to serve you well." She knelt on the ground, assuring that she would make it hard for the young master to punish a diligent servant like herself. She reached out to Gu Bei-shen's leg and asked, "What does the young master think?" She looked up at him slightly and said, "Is my strength enough, young master? Is it comfortable for you?" The gaze of the enchanting demon exuded a captivating power. The enchanting demon practiced a technique and then asked, "Do you want your servant to massage you?" Gu Bei-shen broke into a sweat, snorted, and thought, "It seems the main act is about to begin." The enchanting demon transmitted the technique to him, and he still thought, "But right now you think I am the dish on your plate, how could you possibly know that just moments ago you became the dish in my hands?" Gu Bei-shen lifted the enchanting demon's chin and exclaimed, "You, servant girl, are very pleasing to this young master." He happily stated, "If you serve this young master well, I will make you a concubine." Who would dare to criticize or interfere? The enchanting demon looked at him with red eyes and thought, "I cannot underestimate this little guy, he is definitely not simple. My enchanting demon technique is disturbing his mind." She smiled enchantingly, but internally she wanted to kill Gu Bei-shen, telling herself, daring to say such things, this person absolutely cannot be kept alive. She secretly unleashed serpent spirit, attacking and biting Gu Bei-shen's neck. The enchanting demon stood up, arrogantly saying, "About to die and still pretending." The enchanting demon snorted coldly, confident, "Although the heavenly maiden can only cultivate spiritual energy at the foundation establishment realm, under the venom of this snake, even if you little guy are a nascent soul realm monster, you won't be able to escape disaster." Gu Bei-shen continued to smile at her, then exhaled and asked, "Are you plotting against me? Haven't I been waiting for you too?" Upon hearing this, the enchanting demon paused. When she realized she was bound by Gu Bei-shen's immortal binding rope, she exclaimed, "I'm done for." The immortal binding rope tightened from her hands to her feet, making it impossible for her to move, and she said, How can you still move?" Gu Bei-shen tightly grasped the tail of the serpent spirit and said, "What a pity, the charm technique you just used, I learned it from Xiao Bei beforehand." He pulled the serpent spirit out, revealing the bite he had cast a spell on, completely unharmed. The enchanting demon solemnly watched Gu Bei-shen crush the serpent spirit and said, "What a pity, the young master here simultaneously loves young women and older women, but simply does not like women who resemble snakes." He threw the serpent spirit to the ground and lamented, "If you had simply served the young master well, I wouldn't have made things difficult for you." He exclaimed as he pulled the immortal binding rope, bringing the enchanting demon closer. Continuing the sentence, "But it seems this young master cannot teach you." A small snake appeared on the chest of the enchanting demon. She said, "You are very skilled, it's just a pity that you are human." She turned her face away, mumbling, "I am a demon," then blushed. Gu Bei-shen smirked and said, I have seen through your tricks long ago. He looked at the small snake and sincerely said, I don't care if you are human or demon, if this young master wants you, then you won't escape. As the enchanting demon glanced at Gu Beishen, the snake cried out and crawled out from her chest. Gu Beishen quickly caught the serpent spirit and angrily asked, does this bitch really want to die? He pulled the snake out of the enchanting demon's chest and said, if not, then this young master will grant your wish. The enchanting demon blushed, snorted, and asked, if the young master wants to kill me, then why bother stopping me from committing suicide? Gu Beishen crushed the snake, looking at her with resentment, thinking, this woman is really a bit troublesome. The first thing she does when I catch her is not to negotiate conditions with me, but to attempt suicide. He furrowed his brows and thought, threatening her to call me husband seems a bit difficult. Gu Beishen couldn't help but feel confused and snorted. He clenched his fists and decided, it seems this is the only way. He tightly held the immortal binding rope and said, if I'm going to finish off an enchanting demon like you. His right hand was raised, wanting to touch that blushing face, lamenting, what a waste of talent. The enchanting demon frowned and asked, so what exactly do you want to do? Unexpectedly, Gu Beishen slapped her, saying, shut up, don't you see I'm wiping the face of the little maid who warms my bed? The enchanting demon angrily shouted, you dare to slap my face. If it weren't for my powers being suppressed in this secret realm. She raged, I will definitely skin you alive. Gu Beishen slapped her until his hand felt hot, thinking, damn it, I do have a talent for playing the villain. But it seems this tactic is effective, because in order to take revenge, she will definitely want to live. Seeing Gu Beishen's eyes glued to her, the enchanting demon flicked her leg. Gu Beishen's expression darkened, arrogantly asking, what? Do you want to tear me apart? Fine, I'll give you a chance. The enchanting demon angrily asked, what do you actually want? Gu Beishen laughed and proposed, call me husband, and I will spare you a way to live, how about that? The enchanting demon disagreed and said, today, I, Hong Tu, have failed at the hands of the young master because my methods were insufficient. Whether to kill or imprison is up to the young master to decide. She tried to turn the tables, resolutely continuing, but if you want this heavenly maiden to submit to you and become your plaything in bed, I fear the young master might not get his wish. Gu Beishen was amused to hear this and replied, now that's more like a heavenly maiden of the magic clan. He raised his hand and explained, but who said this young master needs you to do that? The enchanting demon laughed heartily and wondered, young master, I am truly very curious about your background. She looked straight at Gu Beishen and continued, yet you want to become husband and wife with someone from a magic clan like me? Gu Beishen moved closer to her and said, it's almost like that. He looked down at the enchanting demon and emphasized, this young master only wants to hear you call me husband, this is something only you and I know. He kneels down on one knee and assures, moreover, this young master not only will let you go, but also promises to have a rematch with you outside the secret realm. What do you think? The enchanting demon, after hearing this, felt contempt and snorted coldly, you are truly disgusting, if you want to kill me, go ahead. She angrily gritted her teeth and said, and yet you dare to insult me in this way. Gu Beishen smirked, lamenting, ha ha, heavenly maiden magic clan, it seems you are quite dull and rigid. He pointed disdainfully at the enchanting demon, if I were to kill someone like you, I would feel that my hands would get a bit dirty. Gu Beishen took out the ice-cold sword with a sharp shape, clicking his tongue, he asked, the quality of this horn looks quite good, doesn't it? He raised the icy blade towards the enchanting demon, causing her to cry out in fear, don't, please, you can kill me, but don't cut off my horn. Despairingly, she said, without the demon sect, I will become the lowliest slave of the magic clan, living worse than dead. The enchanting demon raised her face, I beg you, just kill me. Gu Beishen, seeing her like this, was amused and thought, aha, so you do have a weakness. His eyes sharpened, he slyly said, then this will be easy. Gu Beishen raised the ice tongue again, causing the enchanting demon to flinch, but then Gu Beishen said, cutting it off would indeed be too cruel. He grinned, thought of a new trick, and said, then I will carve it, letting the maid warm Gu Beishen's bed on your horn. Gu Beishan smirked wickedly and asked, "What do you think of these 8 characters?" The ice tongue was raised, causing the enchanting demon to shut her eyes tightly. Gu Beishan drew a line on her horn and said, "Xiao Tu, I forgot to ask you." He leaned in with a strange expression and asked, "Do you prefer to have a vow or a punishment?" The enchanting demon was so frightened that she quickly replied, "I don't want any, I will agree to whatever conditions you have." She timidly looked at the ice tongue and said, "Please, don't carve words on my horn, I beg you, I beg you." Gu Beishan let out a breath and said, "I've been overthinking. If my husband personally carves for you, then what should he carve?" For a moment, he transformed into a devil again and answered himself, "Of course, it would be whatever my husband likes, after all, you won't be able to see it." Gu Beishan's attitude made the enchanting demon so scared that she began to cry, saying, "Stop, I will call." She stammered, "Huss, huss." Gu Beishan looked at her, feeling relieved, thinking, "Finally, I've managed to deal with the enchanting demon." He admitted, "If this move doesn't work, I really don't know what to do next. Now it's good, I've secured a Heavenly Maiden Magic Clan Golden Elixir Realm as a backup." Just as Gu Beishan thought he was about to achieve his desire, a burst of fire suddenly flew in from somewhere, causing both of them to turn and look. Gu Beishan quickly embraced the enchanting demon and jumped up. He turned his head, astonished, and asked, "What is this? Is this the spiritual energy of the Golden Elixir Realm?" He looked around, searching for that person, thinking, "Yet there is someone who is not suppressed by the secret realm like me." At this moment, that person gradually approached, none other than Ling, who was radiating a frenzied aura, shouting, "Exterminate the Magic Clan." His eyes also gleamed as he shouted, "Exterminate the Magic Clan." Gu Beishan, not recognizing his condition, angrily said, "Ling, I have tolerated you many times for Xiao Tian's sake." He gritted his teeth, continuing in indignation, "I didn't expect you actually want to kill both me and the Magic Clan." Ling raised his sword and yelled, "Exterminate the Magic Clan." Then he immediately rushed up, shouting, "Kill." Gu Beishan furrowed his brows, pausing to think, what is going on? He raised the ice-cold sword in front of him, sensing that something was off with Ling. Ling charged down from above, and Gu Beishan unleashed spiritual energy with a strike, rushing up. Both of them simultaneously attacked with their swords. Gu Beishan became even more certain that, there's no mistake. The two sides faced off again. He deduced that the spiritual energy Ling was utilizing must be above the Golden Elixir realm. Ling unleashed his strength again, causing Gu Beishan to grunt and fall backward. His feet anchored to the ground, he resisted the force that was pushing him back. Gu Beishan lowered his head, took a breath, and looked at Ling, puzzled, how does Ling have such strength? Moreover, he is exuding a bit of demon energy. Ling clenched his fists, his eyes filled with hatred, insisting on wiping out the Magic Clan. He tightened his grip on the sword and shouted, "Kill the enchanting demon." On Nia Xiao Tian's side, she called out while walking, "Beishan Gij, holy girl, Li's senior brother," but still did not hear anyone respond. She wondered, where are you guys? Then, she paused and thought, this secret realm is so vast, could I have gotten lost? She anxiously said, I remember Beishan Gij ran in this direction. Nia Xiao Tian suddenly noticed something and stood still again. She looked at the two statues and asked, are these stone statues? But they look so lifelike. Additionally, this is the clothing of the Cloud Heaven Palace. She moved closer to observe and said, moreover, this horned figure seems to belong to the Magic Clan. She glanced at the statue of the young man and speculated, could it be that some expert from the Cloud Heaven Palace perished here along with the Magic Clan? Nia Xiao Tian suddenly discovered another detail, exclaiming, wait a minute, the bodies and clothes of these two have completely turned to stone, yet this sword remains intact. Furthermore, spiritual energy is emanating from within. The ring that this Magic Clan member is wearing also has demon energy radiating from it. She doubted, could it be that what the holy girl is looking for are these two magic weapons? In the dark cave, Gu Beishan and Ling were both panting heavily from having fought countless rounds. He realized that what was emanating from Li Ziling was not spiritual traditions, but it is demon energy. He clenched his teeth, wondering, is he possessed by the magic clan? The enchanting demon spoke up, saying, he is a cultivator of the human clan, why does he have demon energy in him? She scoffed, as if she realized something, and continued, you yourself said he is a cultivator of the human clan, how can I know about your human clan affairs? Gu Baishan looked at Li Ziling, realizing that, this woman clearly knows something but is intentionally withholding it from me. He raised his sword again and said, forget it, I have to rely on myself. Li Ziling kept shouting, eradicate the magic clan. Then unleashed powerful demon energy. He went mad and rushed forward, yelling, eradicate the magic clan. Gu Baishan glared at him and said, crazy fool. Then stepped back, but still unleashed ice, causing Li Ziling to hesitate. After that, he frantically charged into the ice like a steel body, causing it to crack in no time. With no other choice, Gu Baishan embraced the enchanting demon and ran away from the collapsing ice. The two landed and looked at the sword radiating demon energy from Li Ziling. The enchanting demon found it somewhat amusing and said, your teammate wants to kill me like this, yet you are protecting me. She turned her head to look at Gu Baishan and asked, do you really like me? Gu Baishan was too preoccupied to joke with her and exclaimed, stop the nonsense, if you die, all the work ahead for this young master will be in vain. He used his ice technique, his face filled with anger, thinking, this Li Ziling knows how to pick the right moment to cause trouble. He furrowed his brow, regretting, saying, I almost called you my husband without thinking. He shot sharp ice at Li Ziling and thought of it as a way to test his combat strength. Li Ziling shouted, your magic clan accomplices, then yelled and jumped forward, ice thorn spells. Gu Baishan said seriously, not good. He drew back the ice and realized that his ice-type spiritual energy seemed to be suppressed by her. Li Ziling, enraged, unleashed a powerful strike, cursing, damn magic clan. Their accomplices are even more damned. Gu Baishan and the enchanting demon were surrounded by the dense demon energy of Li Ziling. He gritted his teeth, annoyed, and said, this Li Ziling keeps launching attacks. In the end, how much demon energy was contained in his body? Only the enchanting demon calmly realized, this demon energy clearly did not exist within him, but rather he was continuously absorbing the demon energy from this secret realm. She looked at Gu Baishan and asked, can't you see this? Gu Baishan also looked at her and said, stop talking so much. He coldly reminded her, the wall of fire is gradually closing in on us. If we don't find a way out, both of us will die here. The enchanting demon was unconcerned, snorting, anyway, whether I die at your hands or someone else's makes no difference. She casually said, that's fine, now I have an extra cushion to rely on. Gu Baishan suppressed his power, sneered, and asked, do you really think that, and unleashed the water energy he had accumulated, continuing the sentence that the young master needed your help with. The water technique he unleashed was widespread, but it was ineffective against Li Ziling's demon energy. This astonished Gu Baishan, who said, my ice-type spiritual energy should clearly be able to restrain him. He wondered why it had no effect on him at all. The enchanting demon then burst into laughter, mocking, clearly, you have dual spiritual roots, but your mind is so dull. She frowned and said nonchalantly, it's as if you just picked up the spiritual roots. This made Gu Baishan secretly admit, it's true that I picked up the spiritual roots. At that moment, he realized he was sweating nervously and thought, could it be that my use of dual spiritual roots has a problem? This is bad. Li Ziling drew her sword and said, you couple from the magic clan. Then she resolutely declared, let me burn you to ashes. Just then, a voice called from behind, stop. Li Ziling. He turned and called out, Holy Girl Lord. He gritted his teeth and said, Gu Baishan has become an accomplice of the magic clan, he deserves to be burned to death. But unexpectedly, Yin Zixian had placed her sword against him and commanded in a firm voice, I, the Holy Girl, command you to stop. Li Ziling, frustrated, had not yet withdrawn her move and asked, could it be that the Holy Girl has also become an accomplice of the magic clan? Yin Zixian shouted, Li Ziling, wake up. She emphasized, don't let the demon energy overtake your reason. Suddenly, Li Ziling kept calling Nia Xiao Tian as if it were a remnant memory in his subconscious. He collapsed, called again, Xiao Tian, and then knelt forcefully on the ground. Li Ziling sadly called out, Xiao Tian. Gu Beishan on the other side felt relieved, thinking, I've been saved. Luckily, the first wife came just in time. In critical moments, I still need to rely on my first wife. The immortal binding rope on the enchanting demon vanished, and she stood there for a moment, not understanding anything. Meanwhile, Gu Beishan lamented, fortunately, I managed to retract the rope in time. If the first wife had seen this, I can only imagine how scared I would be thinking about being beaten by Yin Zixian, and I might end up worse than being burned to death. Li Ziling could not help but want to take Gu Beishan's life, revealing more shocking news. Holy Girl Lord, Gu Beishan always helps this woman from the magic clan. He gritted his teeth and asked, is it wrong for me to kill him? Yin Zixian also asked impatiently, Gu Beishan, is what Li Ziling said true? Gu Beishan could not suppress his anger and explained, although it is true that I stopped Li Ziling from killing Hong Tu, it wasn't because I was helping her. Yin Zixian angrily pressed, then why did you do that? Gu Beishan raised his hand toward the enchanting demon and replied, Hong Tu is from the Heavenly Maiden Magic Clan, if we kill her. He looked at Yin Zixian, considering the bigger picture, and replied, then the Magic Clan will definitely seek revenge against Cloud Heaven Palace. Yin Zixian coldly asked, do you think Cloud Heaven Palace is afraid of the Magic Clan's revenge? Gu Beishan intervened, Holy Girl, the purpose of our trip is likely not to come here to kill. He raised his hand and said, all of this has been thought out carefully. As long as Hong Tu does not stop us, we can obtain what we want, so there is no need to add more hatred towards the Magic Clan. The enchanting demon viewed Gu Beishan differently after hearing these words, thinking, this little guy is young yet thinks so maturely. The reason he didn't kill me earlier was because of this. She looked at Gu Beishan, who was still trying to defend her, and thought, as soon as the holy girl from Cloud Heaven Palace arrived, he immediately retracted the rope, probably fearing that I couldn't fight back and would be killed by them. She then turned to Li Ziling, who logically stated, no matter what, I have regained my freedom now. The only issue is Li Ziling. Li Ziling remained poised to kill Gu Beishan. Enchanting demon unleashed a bit of demon energy and released something, thinking, it's just the right time for me to see what this Li Ziling is up to. Just when Li Ziling was being fierce, Yin Zixian said, that works, causing him to pause and look at her. Hong Tu's demon energy is almost completely depleted, and facing the three of us, she has no chance of winning. She pointed her sword at enchanting demon and added, if she willingly forfeits her cultivation, I will spare her life. Li Ziling raised her sword in disagreement, saying, no way, we must kill the entire Magic Clan. The red object from earlier flew to where Li Ziling was saying, leave no one alive. He was unaware that it had entered his mind. Enchanting demon glanced at Gu Beishan with a faint smile, thinking, yet he showed no resistance to the demon energy, what extreme method has he used? But it doesn't matter, the more he behaves like this, the higher his talent in the Magic Clan will be. Li Ziling grew more agitated, shouting with her sword, the Magic Clan is full of evil beings, we are like fire and water with them. Yin Zixian also called out, Li Ziling, is it your turn to speak here yet? She raised her hand and said, how dare you oppose the holy girl? Enchanting demon laughed out loud, ha ha ha, and said, the outcome has yet to be determined. She pointed at Gu Beishan and continued, yet you all are here discussing how to deal with me. Gu Beishan turned to remind her, hey, shut up. You won't die if you don't talk. He raised both hands and recalled, no, you're more likely to die if you say a few more words. Enchanting demon sighed, young master really cares too much about me. Shouldn't you be more concerned about Nia Xiao Tian, who hasn't shown up for a long time? She pointed at Li Ziling and taunted, Nia Xiao Tian was stolen from Li Ziling, right? Her gaze was venomous as she said, that's why you're so cold toward others. Li Ziling burst forth with spiritual energy toward her sword, getting more and more angry, and said, a filthy magic clan like you doesn't deserve to mention the name Xiao Tian. Yin Zixian called out to Li Ziling, but he had already charged at enchanting demon. Yin Zixian excitedly shouted, come back to me. Enchanting demon, amused, laughed haha and thought, and now you're starting to condense demonic essence, truly a genius among demon cultivators. Then become the enchanting demon of the heavenly maiden. She thought for a moment, stepped back, then bit her finger, using the blood to create a flower, laughing maniacally. Ling rushed forward with a blazing sword, shouting, "Die, magic clan." She struck out with her sword, but the enchanting demon managed to dodge it. Gu Bei-shen, panicking, shouted, Ling, get out of the way. But it was too late, as he had already been pressed by the enchanting demon with her blood on his forehead. Ling retreated in a daze, her mind corrupted. Gu Bei-shen behind her tried to call out to Ling, but he knelt down hard like a lifeless corpse. The enchanting demon arrogantly asked, "So, how does the fresh blood of the master taste?" After a moment, Ling clutched her head, screaming in pain. Xian looked at her writhing in agony, confused, and asked, Ling, what's wrong with you? Gu Bei-shen also raised his hand and exhaled, thinking, just as I suspected. He was stunned and said, this little guy has no resistance to the magic clan's charm. Ling clutched her head, crying out in agony, and after a while, horns began to grow, becoming more pronounced. At that moment, the enchanting demon unleashed her demon energy and arrogantly asked, I recall you discussing whether to strip me of my cultivation or to kill me to relieve your anger. She manifested a whip, clicking her tongue and said, didn't expect this, did you? She looked down at Ling and continued, the situation has turned around so quickly. Then she lashed the whip at Ling, strike after strike, causing him to fall to the ground. The enchanting demon viciously shouted, you bastard, get up quickly. She smugly informed Ling, you won't expect it, but from now on, you will be the servant of this heavenly maiden, got it? Xian raised her sword and realized, Ling has been controlled. Ling growled within the whip of the enchanting demon. She calmly commanded, now listen to your master, go and torment that holy girl for a bit. Ling growled at Xian, repeatedly mentioning the name Xiao Tian with disjointed speech. He called out for Xiao Tian, bowing his head and still calling for Xiao Tian. The enchanting demon huffed and said, that little girl. After this match is over, your master will reward her to you. She amusingly said, you're free to handle the little servant as you wish. Gu Bei-shen looked at the situation before him and could only sigh inwardly, this is a mess now, all because of that fool Ling. He grit his teeth in frustration and said, the dungeons have turned into a hellish level of difficulty. Xian then coldly ordered, Ling has fully joined the magic clan, eliminate him. She stated seriously, I believe he won't blame us, freeing him will actually be a great achievement. Gu Bei-shen did not respond, rubbed his head, and thought, hey, I don't want to be a hero, I just want to expand my 100 Wives book. The enchanting demon laughed excitedly and said, wait a moment, I'll leave the high and mighty holy girl for you to handle. Absorbing the spiritual traditions of a golden elixir realm cultivator, your demonic seed will surely take shape. Ling, now dazed, had become aggressive. The enchanting demon arrogantly considered himself the boss and said, your master treats you very well, doesn't he?